Chapter 101. This is my sword. All disciples of the Qingyan sect, watch closely. This is my sword. Yi Zan's voice was like roaring thunder. The cultivators of the Qingyan sect, who were still in a daze, came to their senses immediately. Given his strength, whether it was killing the sect leader of the Xuanian sect, the elders, or the ancestor, Minghe, with his strength, he did not need to use the god-slaying sword, or even his sword intent. However, he wanted to give an opportunity to the cultivators of the Qingyan sect. After all, in these moments of crisis for the sect, no matter what intentions they had, these disciples had stood firmly behind the sect. It was also because everyone had activated the second layer of the Mountain Guardian Array formation, which had delayed Minghe for some time, that Yi Zan had gained enough time to fill up the final gaps and completely cover his golden core. Therefore, this opportunity was what they deserved. Yi Zan was not stingy in the slightest, and all the power in his body burst forth. As soon as he finished speaking, the swords in the hands of countless cultivators suddenly burst forth with bright spiritual light, which then gathered toward the god-slaying sword. This sword would be the strongest sword strike within the current era of the Great Qian dynasty. It could split mountains and rivers, and split heaven and earth. The god-slaying sword started to tremble violently. The 7 blood-colored patterns on the sword shone with brilliant divine light. In the blink of an eye, 7 blood-colored sword chi patterns flew forward and appeared in front of a Xuanian sect elder. Before the elder could fully react, the shocked expression on his face was frozen in time. Struck by the brilliant sword chi, he turned into ashes and dissipated slowly. A swordsman in the middle stage of the true core realm had fallen. The blood-colored sword chi patterns from the god-slaying sword swept across heaven and earth, as if it had cut open a path through space itself. It was like a constellation of 9 stars from the heavens had descended. The sword chi patterns appeared on the bodies of 2 other Xuanian sect elders in an instant. A line of stars. All of a sudden, the eyes of the 2 elders widened. They did not feel any pain, but were cut open by the sword chi patterns and dismembered. Just as their heads left the corpses, a resplendent pillar of sword chi suddenly descended. In an instant, their heads were destroyed and turned into ashes. Another sword strike had easily killed 2 core formation realm experts. Seeing this, Minghe's expression could not help but change greatly. The hand holding the black long spear trembled. Then, he hurriedly withdrew it. His old body erupted with a terrifying power as he frantically retreated. Yi Zan's power was so terrifying that it made his heart palpitate. If he fought Yi Zan, he would die without a doubt. Before such terrifying power, even he, a peak core formation realm expert, would not be able to withstand a single move. He felt his entire soul tremble wildly, and the last trace of his self-esteem as a supreme expert instantly dissipated. Old man, trying to escape. Seeing this, a sneer hung on the corners of Yi Zan's mouth. He waved his sleeve and turned into a stream of light, chasing after Minghe at an even faster speed. If there was anyone among the cultivators of the Xuanian sect present who had the greatest chance of escaping, it would definitely be Minghe. Although Yi Zan's power could easily crush him, the latter was still a peak core formation realm expert. If he focused on escaping, his chances were far higher than the rest. If he really managed to escape and hide, even Yi Zan might not be able to find him. In an instant, the figures of Yi Zan and Minghe suddenly disappeared. The remaining 11 people of the Xuanian sect were stunned. It was as if they had been struck by lightning and petrified. They had never imagined Yi Zan's strength to be so terrifying that even a peak core formation realm expert would retreat without trying to put up a fight. Right now, their minds were constantly replaying the shocked and terrified expression of their patriarch before he escaped. If even the patriarch was no match for Yi Zan, then what about them? Run. They had to escape quickly. They had to get away as fast as they could. It just so happened that Yi Zan was currently chasing after the patriarch. He had no time to deal with them at all. This was a perfect opportunity to escape. Ming Shui immediately made his move. However, moments later, he suddenly felt a chilling sensation from his waist. When he turned around to look, he saw that the bottom half of his body had been separated from the top half. Not like this. That incomparably terrifying sword chi rampaged crazily through his body. Ming Shui's eyes were filled with unwillingness. Still, so what? His vision was gradually fading, and the life force in his body was rapidly dissipating. However, just as he was about to die, he suddenly reflected on his life. He often sat on the mountain peak in a daze, looking at the soaring eagles in the sky. His heart was filled with envy. He longed to one day be like an eagle, soaring through the heavens and standing at the peak of the food chain. He had not reached the peak of the core formation realm yet, and his ambition had not been fulfilled yet. Yi Zan, I am not reconciled. Once the violent sword qi reached his dantian, the final vestiges of his consciousness faded away. Ming Shui had fallen. At the same time, the two vice sect leaders of the Xuanian sect also fell. This was because, before Yi Zan chased after Ming he casually sent forth a few streaks of sword qi at Ming Shui and the others. Although it was just a casual attack, Yi Zan's golden core had already reached full completion. There was no way Ming Shui or the others would be able to withstand even the simplest of his strikes. Now that the most powerful cultivators of the Xuanian sect had fallen, even if the other elders were lucky enough to escape, it would not be difficult to find and uproot them in the future. Swoosh. Looking at Yi Zan's approaching figure, Ming He's expression changed drastically. His eyes struggled for a moment, and then revealed a hint of madness. Moments later, the power in his dantian turned violent. In addition, a dazzling jade token appeared in Ming He's hand. He was the patriarch of the Xuanian sect, after all. How could he not have a trump card? The jade token cracked and broke into pieces slowly, forming a tough energy shield around him. This energy shield could withstand the strike of a supreme unity realm cultivator. Boom. In the next second, a beam of brilliant sword energy suddenly struck the energy shield. The energy shield rippled and trembled crazily, and shattered into pieces just 2 seconds later. This is impossible. Seeing this, Ming He stared in disbelief. The energy shield could even resist the strike of a supreme unity realm expert. How had it shattered after one of Yi Zan's sword strikes? What kind of monster was this guy? He was only at the peak of the core formation realm, yet the power contained in his sword qi was equivalent to a supreme unity realm expert's. Ming He revealed a look of despair. The resplendent sword qi did not dissipate. It shot forth and pierced Ming He's chest instantly. Phew! Ming He spat out a mouthful of blood. Several ribs had been broken, and the violent sword qi was wreaking havoc through his meridians. Although he had used the energy shield to block most of Yi Zan's sword qi, even so, he was already heavily injured. In his current state, he could not block Yi Zan's next sword strike. Chapter 102. Inviting the ancestor to die. Yi Zan, oh, no, I mean Senior Yi. Please spare my life. Ming He's face was pale as he begged for mercy and fear. He was no longer as arrogant as before. He had finally understood why Yi Zan was so terrifyingly strong. Having witnessed that sword strike just now, he sensed that Yi Zan had awakened an extremely tyrannical and terrifying physique. In addition to that, Yi Zan also possessed terrifying sword intent that seemed like it could tear the world apart. The most crucial thing was that Yi Zan had not only reached the peak of the core formation realm, but had reached its limits as well. As an old monster that had lived for hundreds of years, he naturally knew what this meant. It meant that Yi Zan had already condensed 108 complete blood-red strands that were now wrapped around his golden core. Only once he did this could he truly reach the limits of the core formation realm. At the same time, it also meant that Yi Zan could step into the unity realm at any time. Unbelievably, Yi Zan was currently at this step. In comparison, the blood-red strands that were wrapped around his own golden core only numbered 39. The difference between him and Yi Zan was akin to the difference between heaven and earth. In other words, even if Yi Zan did not use the sword overlord physique, and did not use his sword intent, and did not use the god-slaying sword, he could still rely on his own cultivation level to kill Ming He. Moreover, enhanced by these terrifying trump cards, Yi Zan's current strength had already reached the threshold of the unity realm. However, the only response Ming He received was Yi Zan's indifferent sword strike. I, Yi Zan, hereby invite the patriarch of the Xuanian sect to die. Under this sword strike, the galaxy seemed to freeze, and a 9-star constellation descended. No. Seeing this, Ming He displayed a look of despair, and then his eyes became incomparably crazy. A scarlet and bloody stream of light suddenly burst out of his body, emanating a strange energy, and instantly coiled around Yi Zan's palm. At the same time, the torrent of sword qi poured into Ming He's body. Ming He, a peak core formation realm expert, had fallen. Seeing this, Yi Zan could not help but frown. He suddenly sensed an extremely strange energy penetrating his palm. Moreover, after entering his meridians, it frantically rushed toward his dantian. Get out. Seeing this, Yi Zan's eyes could not help but turn cold. The vast spiritual power in his dantian suddenly exploded, forcing out the strange blood-colored energy in a domineering manner. However, what puzzled Yi Zan was that even he could not determine what this blood-colored energy was at the moment, so he could only throw it into the storage space. Whoosh. After doing all this, Yi Zan's body turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Soon, Yi Zan returned to the Qingyan sect. After sensing the aura left behind by the Xuanian sect elders, he disappeared again. A few seconds later, everyone saw a few incomparably resplendent torrents of sword chi torrents flashing in the distance. A few seconds later, similar torrents of sword chi also flashed in another direction. About 5 minutes later, Yi Zan returned. With the god-slaying sword in hand, he slowly flew back to Qingyan Mountain. At this moment, the entire Qingyan sect turned silent. The martial arts training ground, where tens of thousands of people were gathered, was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Countless cultivators stood on the spot with blank expressions. Their faces were full of stupefaction, and their eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. Everyone's gaze fell on Yi Zan, and the same thought popped up into their minds at the same time. Elder Yi Zan was too terrifying. He was like an immortal in the mortal world, an invincible existence. One person and one sword. All it took was one move to kill a core formation cultivator. Yi Zan. He was only 20 years old, but had already reached the peak of the core formation realm. He had single-handedly destroyed the top experts of the Xuanian sect. The Shenshin sect elder could not help but stare with his eyes wide open. He gulped and trembled involuntarily. His heart was filled with uneasiness. Elder Yi Zan was so terrifying, and he and the Shenshin sect had chosen to abandon the Qingyan sect in their time of need. If the former wanted to settle the score with them, what could they do? Do you still have the Jade token to activate the Mountain Guardian array formation? Suddenly, Yi Zan's voice broke the silence. Although he had killed Minghe and the others, this matter was not over yet. He wanted to personally visit the headquarters of the Xuanian sect and settle this matter once and for all. Moreover, such a huge commotion would definitely attract the attention of the great Qian royal family. Perhaps that old monster from the royal palace was already on his way to the Qingyan sect. No, it's gone. At this moment, Wan Shanhai was still in a state of shock. However, when he heard Yi Zan's words, he replied subconsciously. The Jade token just now was the key to activate the Mountain Guardian array formation. The Qingyan sect had previously produced an extremely powerful formation expert, and this Mountain Guardian array formation had been set up by him. At the same time, he had also left behind the Jade token key. The Jade token contained a miniature Mountain Guardian array formation. As long as it was crushed, the miniature array formation would resonate with the Qingyan sect's Mountain Guardian array formation and activate it. However, refining the Jade token was extremely difficult. Even the formation expert had only left behind 3 Jade tokens. The previous 2 had already been used hundreds of years ago when the Qingyan sect had gone through a calamity. The one that was crushed by Wan Shanhai just now had been the last one. Okay, Yi Zan nodded and did not say anything further. Yi Zan, that ancestor Minghe, is he? Wan Shanhai looked at Yi Zan and asked with some anticipation in his heart. That person no longer exists in this world. Yi Zan said with a calm expression, as if he was talking about a small matter. What? He died. Although everyone was secretly hoping for it, when Yi Zan said it himself, they were still shocked. Minghe was a peak core formation realm expert. Even within the Great Qian dynasty, he was one of the strongest and most terrifying experts. Not much time had passed either, yet Yi Zan had somehow killed him just like that. The two were supposedly at the same level, so why was the distance between them so great? Wan Shanhai and the elders were stunned senseless, and many disciples of the Qingyan sect stared at Yi Zan with awe-filled eyes. Their admiration for the latter had reached new heights. At this moment, in their hearts, Yi Zan was like an immortal descending to the mortal world. He was an absolutely invincible existence. Yi Zan ignored the expressions and reactions of the crowd. Instead, he rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. He had planned to head directly over to the Xuanian sect and wipe out the remaining people. However, it was very likely that when he left the Qingyan sect, the people from the Great Qian royal family would come over. After all, there were 17 top-notch core formation realm cultivators who had died at his hands. The Great Qian royal family would definitely not take this matter lightly. Chapter 103. One person is enough to protect the sect. As a peak core formation realm expert, even the Great Qian royal family would be wary of his strength, and would not dare to do anything to the Qingyan sect in his presence. However, if he left the Qingyan sect, there was no guarantee that the Great Qian dynasty would leave the sect alone. Now that they could no longer activate the sect's Mountain Guardian array formation, what sort of trump card could he provide the sect? Yizan pondered this matter for some time, after which his eyes lit up. He could refine a powerful jade token with his own strength. He could condense the power of a peak core formation realm expert into the jade token. As long as the owner crushed it, they would be able to instantly release his power, just like the energy shield that Minghe had used earlier. With the jade token, even if the peak core formation realm expert of the Great Qian dynasty descended, there was no need to be afraid. Most importantly, he did not need to give the jade token to Wan Shanhai. Instead, he could give it to his disciple and obtain a reward from the system. If he was lucky, he might be able to obtain an even stronger jade token, perhaps one that was filled with the power of a supreme unity realm expert. Of course, Yizan did not immediately choose to condense the jade token. Instead, his gaze fell on the elders of the Huoli and Shenshin sects. Although it was just a simple look, the expressions of the elders of the two sects still changed drastically. What does he want? Does he want to get even with us? We were just trying to find a path to survival. Besides, we did not do anything unfavorable to the Qingyan sect. Is Yizan really going to kill us all? At that moment, the hearts of the elders of the two sects were filled with fear. The image of Yizan killing a core formation realm expert with one sword strike resurfaced in their minds, and their bodies trembled. Even if the elders of the two sects joined hands, they would definitely not be able to block the other's sword strike. Leave the competition prizes behind, and you can leave. Yizan looked at the elders of the two sects indifferently. Although the competition between the three sects had not reached the final stages, it was obviously impossible to proceed now. The relationship between the three major sects was no longer the same, given that the other two sects had abandoned the Qingyan sect during their time of need. Besides, even if the competition continued, who could beat you and Li Qingyan? Hearing this, the elders of the two major sects heaved a sigh of relief. Then they eagerly took out the rewards and handed them to Yizan respectfully. What were some rewards compared to their lives? Yizan did not hesitate. He waved his sleeve and put away the heavenly treasures. After that, he kept the top two rewards and handed the rest to Wan Shanhai to handle. Although those personal disciples were not Yizan's disciples, he would not be stingy because of this, and there was no need to take advantage of them. Besides, he had already given those types of rewards to Yu and Li Qingyan previously. Even if he gave them again, he would not receive a reward from the system. Alright, you can go now. After Yizan dealt with the heavenly treasures, he looked at the people of the Huoli and Shenshin sects indifferently. Seeing this, the people of the two sects felt as if they had been pardoned. Only then did they dare to walk away silently. Thank you, Your Excellency. Seeing this, the elders of the two sects bowed to Yizan in gratitude. Yizan's name would henceforth command even greater respect. Seeing this, many of the Qingyan sect disciples revealed strange expressions. Was this really how mighty core formation realm experts should behave? Of course, they also knew that these elders only acted this way because of Yizan's strength. Elder Yizan, who was similar in age to them, could kill a top-notch core formation realm expert with a single blow. With a single sentence, he could even make the elders of these top-ranked sects grovel at his feet. This was Elder Yizan, the youngest and most terrifying elder of the Qingyan sect. At this moment, the Qingyan sect disciples were filled with pride. Although Yizan's strength had nothing to do with them, Yizan was also a member of the Qingyan sect, so it was a kind of honor for them. Elder Yizan also graciously taught them, displaying his sword intent at the martial training ground, and then his sword intent and technique in the fight against the Xuanian sect. Once they witnessed the extent of Yizan's power, the image of that man and his sword had been deeply imprinted in their minds. Especially that invincible and overbearing sword intent, which shocked them to their core. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The elders of the two sects hurriedly left the Qingyan sect with their respective cultivators. They did not even dare to look back, afraid that Yizan might go back on his words. They did not dare to look back until they were far away from the territory of the Qingyan sect. When they saw that no one was chasing them, they heaved a sigh of relief. They also finally believed that Yizan was really willing to let them go. Then, the elders of the two sects looked at each other and saw the bitterness in each other's eyes. Just now, they had completely missed the chance to gain the eternal friendship of the Qingyan sect, and with it the friendship of a peak core formation expert who was only 20 years old. Since Yizan reached such terrifying heights at such an age, his future could be said to be limitless. If nothing went wrong, the other party would definitely be the first Unity Realm expert of the Great Qian dynasty in the past several hundred years of history. They even had a feeling that Yizan alone might raise the Great Qian dynasty's status in the Tianyuan continent. Of course, this had to be based on the premise that Yizan admitted that he was a cultivator of the Great Qian dynasty. Indeed, in the minds of these elders of the two sects, Yizan's strength no longer required the recognition of the Great Qian dynasty. Instead, the Great Qian dynasty needed Yizan's recognition. He was only 20 years old, but had already reached the peak of the core formation realm. He was a shoo-in to reach the Unity realm. If there was a supreme Unity realm expert in the Great Dynasty, the gap between the Great Qian dynasty and an ordinary empire would be immense. The Great Qian dynasty was ranked in the Nanzhou region of the Tianyuan continent. It was one of the 169 empires, and its overall strength was only placed between the middle and lower ranks. Past the 100th rank. However, if the Great Qian dynasty had a Unity realm expert, then its overall strength would be greatly enhanced. What made them feel extremely bitter was that, just now, they had lost the chance to be friends with a future Unity realm expert. If they had held fast a little longer, until Yizan appeared, the relationship between the three sects would have become extremely strong, and they would also receive Yizan's protection in the future. Unfortunately, they missed their chance. Thinking this, the elders of the two sects were filled with regret. Chapter 104. It's time to reap rewards again. The original relationship between these three sects had been quite good, or they would not have collaborated to hold an inter-sect competition. Although they were not allies in the truest sense, when faced with a hostile force or faction, they would generally choose to fight alongside each other. However, they had no choice but to draw a line in the sand when faced with the full might of the Xuanian sect. After all, it seemed that the latter would not give up until they destroyed the Qingyan sect. Furthermore, Minghe was a peak core formation realm expert. However, even though they had distanced themselves from the Qingyan sect, the Xuanian sect still refused to let them go. At the thought of this, everyone had mixed feelings. If they had known that Yizan's strength was so terrifying, they would not have abandoned the Qingyan sect. Unfortunately, it was still an if. Sigh. The elders of the two sects sighed deeply. It was useless to regret things now. Then, they returned to their respective sects. No one knew how their sect leaders would react when they learned what had happened. Sect leader, the 1,000-year ice silk armor. Yizan's gaze turned to Wan Shanhai with a knowing expression. Ah, okay. Wan Shanhai was momentarily stunned, but then quickly responded and took out the reward he had prepared for the competition from his storage space and handed it to Yizan. After learning of Yizan's terrifying strength, even Wan Shanhai could not help but feel a little cautious around Yizan. However, when he saw the gentle smile on Yizan's face, he was relieved. With Yizan's strength, he could already dominate the Great Qian dynasty. However, the former did not change because of this. I will first give some instructions to you and Qingyan. After that, I will personally go to the Xuanian sect and settle everything. As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan brought Yu and Li Qingyan back to Lingzhu Peak. Wan Shanhai and the other elders were shocked when they heard this, but also somewhat pleased. The Xuanian sect, the second-ranked sect in the Great Qian dynasty, a terrifying force that had existed for thousands of years, was actually going to be wiped out. One person and one sword was all it took to destroy such a powerful sect. Who knew what kind of shock it would cause in the Great Qian dynasty? Under normal circumstances, the Great Qian royal family would never allow this to happen. However, how could they stop Yizan? After all, even Minghe, who was a peak core formation realm expert, was no match for Yizan. Even that old monster from the Great Qian dynasty might not be able to stop Yizan. However, no matter what the outcome was, the Great Qian royal family would definitely make a move without hesitation. Perhaps that old monster was already on his way to the Qingyan sect. Yizan figured as much, but it would not affect his decision. After witnessing Yizan's strength, the crowd naturally would not doubt Yizan's decision either. In fact, they would support him with all their might. Your top priority is to properly digest the sword intent that I displayed just now. Although Yizan's figure had disappeared, his voice still rang out very clearly in everyone's ears. We will obey Elder Yizan's orders. Many Qingyan sect cultivators shouted excitedly, and many new fanboys and fangirls were born on this day. Wan Shanhai smiled bitterly when he saw this. Why did it feel that this guy had more authority than him, the sect leader? When he had instructed these sect cultivators to cultivate, they had not been so diligent, had they? Looking at their excited expressions, it seemed like if they did not immediately digest the sword intent, they would be letting Yi Zan down. Seeing this, Lin Qing covered her mouth and chuckled. The originally nervous mood also evaporated into joy. Lingju Peak, Cultivation Room. The gazes of these two disciples were fixed on Yi Zan, their eyes filled with hope. Every time their teacher brought them to the cultivation room, there would be good things in store for them. Sure enough, Yi Zan took out the 1,000-year ice silk armor. Yu has reached the 5th level of the Purple Spirit Realm, and Qingyan has reached the 2nd level of the Purple Spirit Realm. Though her strength is relatively weaker, so I've decided to give this 1,000-year ice silk armor to you. Yi Zan surprisingly made a decision that seemed to run contrary to common sense. However, he had his own considerations. He would use the ice silk armor to obtain a better system reward to give to the weaker Li Qingyan. As soon as he finished speaking, an armor filled with the power of ice suddenly appeared. It was as thin as a cicada's wing and was extremely suitable to be worn as an inner armor. Yu's gaze fell on the inner armor that was as thin as a cicada's wing, and she could not help but blush. Although it was a defensive item, it was obviously worn inside, similar to the inner garments that women wore. Did teacher just give me a piece of underwear? Thank you, teacher. Yu lowered her head and shyly took the ice silk armor. However, Yi Zan did not notice the change in Yu's expression. His mind was focused on the system's notification. Ding! As the host has given his disciple the 1,000-year ice silk armor, mid-grade defensive spiritual artifact, the host has received a randomized 23x critical reward. Congratulations! The host has obtained the 1,000-year golden silk armor, high-grade defensive spiritual artifact. After the system's notification ended, an inner armor that was extremely similar to the 1,000-year ice silk armor suddenly appeared in the system's storage space. The difference between the two was that the 1,000-year ice silk armor was forged from ice silk that was as thin as the wings of a cicada, while the 1,000-year golden silk armor was forged from gold silk. In terms of defense, the 1,000-year golden silk armor was easily stronger, but it was also as thin as the wings of a cicada. These gold and silver threads were produced by the golden and ice silkworms. Their strength was not high, but the threads produced from their bodies were extremely tough, and well suited to craft flexible armors and garments. Qingyan, this 1,000-year golden silk armor is for you. Then, Yi Zan gave the 1,000-year golden silk armor to Li Qingyan. Thank you, teacher. Li Qingyan also blushed. After all, both items looked like women's lingerie. Ding! As the host has given his disciple the 1,000-year-old golden silk armor, high-grade defensive spiritual artifact, the host has received a randomized 20x critical reward. Congratulations! The host has obtained the Golden Sparrow Armor, high-grade defensive spiritual artifact. As soon as the system notification ended, Yi Zan extended his spiritual sense into the system's storage space. A golden red armor was floating inside. Floating behind the armor, like an illusory phantom, was the outline of a bird-type demonic beast. According to the system's description, this armor could be worn over the user's regular clothes. It was very convenient. Chapter 105. Shy Disciples. Why is it so shiny? Is this specially designed for girls? If I put it on, I might be called a pervert by others. 1. Seeing this, Yi Zan's mouth twitched. He did not expect the defensive spiritual artifact he had obtained from the system to be designed for women. Forget it. I'll give them this one in the future too. I might get a different reward from the system then. Thinking this, Yi Zan suddenly felt helpless. The defensive power of the gold sparrow armor was indeed quite high, but it was not very useful to him. Was it not better to crush the enemy with absolute strength? Moreover, his defensive sword techniques were all extremely powerful. Although they were martial techniques, their defensive power was not inferior to the gold sparrow armor at all. Oh, I almost forgot about the spirit burst flower. Immediately, Yi Zan directed his spiritual sense into the storage space. However, after thinking for a moment, he still stopped. You, leave the spirit burst flower with me for now. I'll let you use it in the future. If he gave his disciple the same type of heavenly treasure in the same month, he would not receive a reward from the system. He had already given you a heavenly treasure that could increase her comprehension value this month. If he wanted to make the most of the system, he would have to wait until next month to give her the spirit burst flower. Moreover, heavenly treasures that could increase a cultivator's comprehension value or innate bone value were extremely rare. Naturally, he would save them for when he could receive a reward from the system. Okay, Yu nodded her head obediently. In her heart, her teacher was number one. She would agree to anything her teacher said. Why are your faces so red? Suddenly, Yi Zan looked at the two girls' cheeks, looking puzzled. Hearing this, the two girls' faces turned even redder. Yu was 14 years old, and Li Qingyan was 17 years old. Although the two girls' cultivation levels far surpassed other cultivators of the same age range, thanks to Yi Zan's help, they were still young girls at heart. Emotionally, they were no different from those other young girls. When Yi Zan realized that Li Qingyan had shyly put the 1,000-year-old golden silk armor back into her storage space, he finally reacted and revealed an embarrassed expression. He had only been looking at the system's rewards, and had not noticed the change in their expressions. During this period of time, you will stay in the Qingyan sect. But in order to prevent the cultivators from the Great Qian royal family from coming to the Qingyan sect to cause trouble, I'll give you an offensive jade token and a protective jade token. That doesn't seem to be enough. I'll give you a speed-boosting jade token as well. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan waved his sleeve, and 3 jade tokens suddenly appeared in front of him. These so-called jade tokens were forged from crystals that possessed special powers. In the eyes of ordinary people, they were extremely sturdy objects. However, in the eyes of cultivators, they were extremely fragile. All it took was a few hundred jin of force to crush them. Even cultivators in the refinement realm could easily crush them. However, because the crystal's internal structure was very strange, it could temporarily seal a cultivator's power inside. It was often given by high-level cultivators to their juniors as a trump card. Whether it was the Minghe's protective jade token or the Feng Yitai's sword qi jade token, they all belonged to the category of jade tokens. There were protective jade tokens, offensive jade tokens, and auxiliary jade tokens. Then, Yi Zan sat cross-legged. The surging power of the golden core in his body was slowly compressed by his spiritual sense. It condensed into a miniature rune. Although the rune was small, it contained terrifying power. Runes were also divided into 3 types: offensive, protective rune, and auxiliary rune. He refined these runes one by one, and slowly fused them with the jade tokens. Soon, Yi Zan had refined 3 jade tokens. The first was the protective jade token. As long as it was crushed, it would transform into an extremely sturdy energy shield that enveloped the cultivator. Cultivators below the Unity realm would definitely be unable to penetrate the energy shield. The second was the speed-boosting jade token, which was a kind of auxiliary jade token. As long as one crushed it, one's speed would increase and reach the same speeds that Yi Zan could move at for a short period of time. The third was the offensive jade token, which contained one of Yi Zan's full-strength attacks. The power contained within this attack was comparable to that of a Unity realm expert. After refining these 3 jade tokens, Yi Zan took a deep breath. The spiritual power in his dantian had almost been exhausted. As such, Yi Zan focused on meditating and absorbing the spiritual energy around him to recover. After some time, Yi Zan returned to his peak state. Then, he took out the jade tokens that he had refined and gave them to his disciple. Each jade token contains my full power. The system should give me a reward for these, right? Yi Zan thought to himself. With these 3 jade tokens, his disciple might even be able to kill the peak core formation realm expert of the Great Qian royal family. Yi Zan gave these 3 jade tokens to Yu. Ding. As the host has given his disciple an offensive jade token, first level of the Unity realm, the host has received a randomized 11x critical reward. Congratulations. The host has obtained an offensive jade token, second level of the Unity realm. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a speed-boosting jade token, first level of the Unity realm, the host has received a randomized 5x critical reward. Congratulations. The host has obtained a speed-boosting jade token, first level of the Unity realm. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a protective jade token, first level of the Unity realm, the host has received a randomized 13x critical reward. Congratulations. The host has obtained a protective jade token, second level of the Unity realm. As the system's notification rang out, 3 jade tokens appeared in the system's storage space. The Unity realm was divided into a total of 10 levels. Once one reached the 10th level of the Unity realm, the strength of one's physical body would reach its peak. Just by relying on the strength of one's physical body, one could shatter mountains and rivers and suppress heaven and earth. In other words, this was the realm where cultivators tempered their physical bodies. However, the difficulty of breaking through each minor realm was extremely high. It was no less difficult than breaking through to the Unity realm from the peak of the core formation realm. However, every time a cultivator broke through a minor realm, the strength of their physical bodies would undergo a qualitative change. Moreover, once a cultivator reached the unity realm, the source of their strength would not only flow from their dantian, but from the various cells and pores of their body. Chapter 106. It was time to settle the score. As everyone knew, every time a cultivator broke through a major realm, the spiritual power inside his or her dantian would undergo a qualitative change. Refinement realm, Chi power. Chi transformation realm, spiritual power. True essence realm, true essence power. Purple spirit realm, purple spirit power. The core formation realm was divided into the Zuden power, true core power, and golden core power respectively. When a cultivator reached the advanced stage of the golden core realm, if they wanted to make a breakthrough, they had to release their chi and blood essence and transform them into blood red strands and slowly coil them around the golden core. Only when the golden core in the dantian was fully covered with blood red strands could a cultivator reach the limits of the core formation realm. This was also Yi Zan's current cultivation realm. When the blood red strands reached this realm, the cultivator's dantian would undergo a qualitative change and start producing a divine element. This divine element was the most crucial for a cultivator to step into the unity realm. As long as the divine element in the dantian perfectly fused with the cells in the cultivator's body, the cultivator's physical body would undergo an earth-shaking transformation to become a divine immortal body. The divine element would slowly fuse the initial chi power, and the subsequent powers, all the way up to the golden core power. This was the true essence of the unity realm. The golden core was a catalyst to transform the cultivator's chi and blood essence into this divine element. Of course, in order for a cultivator to truly reach the unity realm, they had to have sufficient chi and blood essence. In addition, unity realm experts were also known as immortal experts, and could be said to have achieved immortality. This was because once the divine element was perfectly fused with the body, every cell in the body would contain divinity, exuding endless vitality. Even if the cultivator was missing an arm or a leg, it would grow back in an extremely short period of time. Most importantly, even if the cultivator's head was cut off, the unity realm cultivator would not die instantly. As long as the head was reattached in time, the cultivator would not die. If the elders of the Xuanian sect had reached the unity realm, even if Yi Zan could split them into two with one sword strike, he would not have been able to kill them completely. Of course, if they were really unity realm experts, Yi Zan might not even have been able to break through their physical defenses. Ever since I completed the 108 blood red strands, my spiritual power has reached the benchmark of a first-level unity realm cultivator, Yi Zan thought to himself. Thanks to the system's information, he was aware of his own strength. The jade tokens he had refined possessed the power of the first level of the unity realm, which meant that his own strength had reached the first level of the unity realm. However, although his spiritual power had reached the standards of the unity realm, his physical body had not, and was still undergoing the transformation process. Phew. Yi Zan took a deep breath. No matter what, given his current strength, and the power of the system's jade tokens, no one in the Great Qian dynasty was his match. After all, in the unity realm, the difference between each minor realm was more than 10 times. Therefore, the difference between a first-level and second-level jade token was self-evident. Of course, Yi Zan would not casually use these jade tokens. After all, these were his strongest trump cards for the time being. Moreover, with his current strength, there was no need for him to fear any cultivator of the Great Qian dynasty. Most importantly, these jade tokens were more useful to him unused. As long as he gave these jade tokens to his disciples, he would obtain jade tokens that contained even more terrifying power. The feeling of cheating is so awesome. I wonder if the system has any other functions. I'll have to study it properly in the future. Yi Zan stroked his chin as he thought this. According to normal logic, no matter what he gave his disciple, he would receive a corresponding reward that was better than what he gave. Then, if he gave a sect to his disciple, would he not be able to directly obtain an even better sect? Yi Zan wondered what the limits of the system were. However, he quickly came back to his senses. The most urgent thing now was to thoroughly deal with the rest of the Xuanian sect. Moreover, he was also very curious about the blood-red energy that Minghe had attacked with before dying. Yi Zan instructed Yu and Li Qingyan to stay in the Qingyan sect. If the experts of the Great Qian dynasty really came to the Qingyan sect, they would have the jade tokens that he had refined to protect them, and did not need to be afraid. It would be fine as long as they were safe and sound. If the royal family of the Great Qian dynasty really dared to make a move, he did not mind if his disciples used the power of the jade tokens to destroy them. Then, Yi Zan left Lingju Peak and turned to fly toward the Xuanian sect. However, Right at this moment, Wan Shanhai appeared. Yi Zan, the Moon Demon Mystic Realm will open soon, Wan Shanhai said. Yes, thank you for your reminder, sect leader. Yi Zan briefly nodded, and then his figure disappeared. After Yi Zan left, Wan Shanhai also returned to the main hall. He had only gone there to remind Yi Zan, worried that the latter might forget about such an important matter. Chapter 107. Shocking the royal family and the Qian Gate. The Moon Demon Mystic Realm was the largest mystic realm in the Nanzhou region. This mystic realm was extremely vast. It was said that the master of this mystic realm was a Unity Realm expert, and the inheritance of that expert was hidden in this mystic realm. Every time the Moon Demon Mystic Realm opened, it would cause a sensation throughout the entire Nanzhou region. Countless powerful sects, families, and empires would swarm over. Although Yi Zan had already reached the peak of the core formation realm, the Moon Demon Mystic Realm was still worth exploring. If he could obtain a bountiful harvest in the mystic realm, he could give those treasures to his disciples and receive the corresponding rewards from the system. Moreover, Yi Zan had a bold idea in mind. It was said that powerful experts could completely refine the mystic realm through special means, thus becoming the true master of the mystic realm. If he could refine the mystic realm and then give it to one of his disciples, would he not be able to obtain an even more precious mystic realm through the system's reward? The Moon Demon Mystic Realm was huge, and there were even many cultivators who said that the mystic realm was as large as the Nanzhou region. Still, the location of the Moon Demon Mystic Realm was extremely obscure. It was hidden in the depths of the spatial dimensions all year round and would only open at specific times. According to the current information he had, the Moon Demon Mystic Realm was very likely to be as large as Earth itself, or at least as vast as the Earth's oceans. Therefore, it was unrealistic for Yi Zan to consider refining the Moon Demon Mystic Realm and making it his own. However, even if he could not refine it, the heavenly treasures and resources it contained were still very attractive. Therefore, he would definitely be there when the Moon Demon Mystic Realm opened. In addition to that, as the largest mystic realm in the Nanzhou region, it would definitely attract countless talented cultivators from various sects and forces, as well as the royal family. He could also take this opportunity to see if there was a suitable disciple candidate among them. Anyhow, he had to deal with the Xuanian sect first. The Moon Demon Mystic Realm could wait. With Yi Zan's current strength, it would take him one day to reach the Xuanian sect even if he traveled at full speed. The patriarch of the Xuanian sect, its sect leader, vice sect leaders and more than a dozen elders had joined hands to attack and destroy the Qingyan sect. Such a huge commotion naturally shocked countless cultivators. This was especially so when Ming Shui attacked the Qingyan sect's Mountain Guardian Array formation. The terrifying shockwaves that swept out shocked the cultivators in the surrounding area. Although they were hundreds of kilometers away, they could still feel the terrifying shockwaves rippling through the air. Immediately, everyone's attention turned to the Qingyan sect. Although they could not see the people who were attacking the Qingyan sect, they could guess their identities based on the attributes of the spiritual power fluctuations that they emitted. When Minghe finally made his move and easily destroyed the Mountain Guardian Array formation, the power he displayed shocked everyone. The patriarch of the Xuanian sect had actually reached the peak of the core formation realm. This meant that he had become one of the strongest cultivators within the Great Qian dynasty. Today, it seemed that one of the top 10 sects, the Qingyan sect, was destined to be destroyed. However, at the critical moment, there was an even more shocking turn of events. Powerful sword qi soared into the sky. The sword qi was filled with an aura that threatened to destroy heaven and earth. The brilliant divine light it released instantly slew the powerful core formation realm elders of the Xuanian sect. The core formation cultivators who were observing the battle were awestruck. Although they did not know who the owner of that terrifying sword qi was, it was obvious that the person was from the Qingyan sect. Could it have been the patriarch of the Qingyan sect? That was not right. The patriarch of the Qingyan sect had already fallen during that shocking battle hundreds of years ago. When Yi Zan personally chased after Minghe, everyone saw who he was clearly. The resplendent sword qi that had soared into the sky actually belonged to this young man. He was the youngest elder of the Qingyan sect and the strongest genius of the Great Qian dynasty, Yi Zan. When everyone's eyes fell on Yi Zan, they were all stunned, as if they had been struck by lightning. Then, Yi Zan turned into a stream of light and chased after Minghe. However, before he left, he casually glanced at everyone. However, from just that glance, everyone's bodies and souls trembled slightly. At that moment, they were glad that Yi Zan was not a bloodthirsty person. News of the battle that happened in the Qingyan sect also reached the Great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate. The Great Qian royal family possessed an extremely rare treasure called the Scrying Orb, which could transmit important information within an extremely short period of time. However, the Scrying Orb also had a limited range. It could only transmit information within a range of 2,000 kilometers. After some time, the news was immediately transmitted to the Great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate. It was also on that day that a terrifying aura that caused everyone's hearts to palpitate erupted from the depths of the royal palace. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, and they kept quiet out of fear. Fortunately, this terrifying aura did not persist for too long, and it did not target anyone on purpose. Otherwise, the royal palace of the Great Qian Empire might have become a river of blood. Apart from that, powerful energy fluctuations also appeared from the direction of the Qian Gate. In less than a moment, the crowd saw two figures suddenly appear above the royal palace and the Qian Gate. Then, they flashed through the sky and disappeared. One of them went to the Qingyan sect, while the other went to the Xuanian sect. After receiving the news of the battle between the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect, the Grand Elder of the Qian Gate and the Old Monster of the Great Qian royal family discussed things with each other briefly, and then decided to act separately. When they thought about the attack on the Qingyan sect, they were furious, but they were even more shocked. Yizan had actually reached the peak of the core formation realm. How old was this guy again? This news was like a thunderclap that exploded in their hearts. When they first heard the news, their hearts were filled with disbelief. Yizan was only 20 years old. How could he have reached the peak of the core formation realm? They even suspected that someone had transmitted fake news through the Scrying Orb. In order to discover the truth of the matter, they chose to split up and personally visit both sides to figure things out. That's ridiculous. How can a 20-year-old reach the peak of the core formation realm? An old man in a golden robe turned into a streak of light and tore through the sky, heading toward the Xuanian sect. Chapter 108. Terror. This was the previous king of the Great Qian dynasty. He had abdicated his position a few decades ago and resided in a deep part of the royal palace behind closed doors. His cultivation level had already reached the peak of the core formation realm. Moreover, he had already condensed 72 blood-red strands around his golden core. In other words, his strength far surpassed that of Minghe. Although he did not believe that Yizan's strength had actually reached the peak of the core formation realm, in order to clear any doubts he had, he decided to head toward the Xuanian sect personally. As for the Qingyan sect, it would be handled by the Grand Elder of the Qian Gate. Swoosh! He turned into a streak of light and headed toward the Xuanian sect at a blistering pace. At the same time, Yizan was also hurrying toward the Xuanian sect. The conflicts between the top-ranked sects was actually tacitly approved by the Great Qian royal family. They would even secretly push the sects to fight each other. However, the Great Qian royal family also did not allow any top-ranked sects to be destroyed or have their foundation greatly damaged. This would break the balance fostered by the Great Qian royal family. After all, no matter how powerful the 10 top-ranked sects were, they were just individual forces. However, if they really gathered together, it would undoubtedly be extremely dangerous for the Great Qian royal family. Moreover, if they could keep the top 10 sects in check, when they fought against the other empires, they could also send these sects to fight on their behalf. Therefore, they would never allow the top-ranked sects to be destroyed. The Xuanian sect. After Patriarch Minghe led the sect leader and the elders to the Qingyan sect, there were only 5 elders left in the sect. Among the 5, the strongest was the third elder, whose cultivation had reached the advanced stage of the true core realm. At this moment, the remaining elders were all gathered in the main hall. The atmosphere inside was extremely oppressive, and the brows of those present were filled with worry. What exactly happened? Why were the soul lamps of the Patriarch and the others extinguished in such a short time? Did that old monster from the Great Qian royal family take action personally? The 8th elder's eyes were filled with disbelief at the thought of this. He still could not accept that the soul lamps of the Patriarch and the others had been snuffed out. The rest of the elders did not want to believe it either. After the Patriarch left secluded cultivation, the entire Xuanian sect had celebrated. They were playing chess, drinking tea, and discussing the Tao. They were enjoying themselves immensely. All they had to do was wait patiently until they received the news of the Patriarch and the others' triumphant return. At that time, the Qingyan sect would have been completely destroyed and consigned to the history books of the Great Qian dynasty. The most important thing was that the matter of the sect secretly collecting qi and blood essence would also be completely concealed. They could then also utilize the same method and steal the chi and blood essence of others to break through. As long as the patriarch succeeded in breaking through to the Unity realm, then the leader of the Great Qian dynasty would have to change. These few days, they had been enjoying themselves in the main hall, their minds constantly envisioning the glorious future of the sect. However, something that caused their expressions to change drastically happened. Gongsun Wuji and Li Wuji's soul lamps were extinguished at the same time. A soul lamp contained a wisp of aura that was extracted from the cultivator's soul and refined into a soul lamp using a special method. This soul lamp reflected the cultivator's life or death status. If the soul lamp was snuffed out, it meant that the cultivator had already died. Previously, when Duan Wuji and Duan Wei died, Li Wuji and Gongsun Wuji had used the same method to confirm the news. However, they did not expect that they would be reunited with their disciples so soon. At that time, the elders overseeing the sect were all shocked, and their expressions were filled with unease. Reality would prove that their worries were warranted. Shortly after, the other elders' soul lamps were also extinguished one after another. Then Ming Shui and Ming He's soul lamps also went out. This was like a bolt from the blue, and the 5 elders were stunned senseless. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The patriarch had reached the peak of the core formation stage. Even though he might be weaker than the old monster from the Great Qian royal family, he should have been stronger than almost anyone else. The Qingyan sect was the last ranked sect among the top 10 sects. How could they have withstood, and even killed the others in the patriarch's presence? Their hearts were filled with fear and panic. No matter what, the Xuanyan sect was currently facing an unprecedented disaster. Among those sent to the Qingyan sect, all of them had died, including the patriarch. What should they do? Fortunately, the third elder reacted quickly. He immediately worked with the other elders to activate the sect's Great Guardian Array formation. After the barrier formed by the Great Guardian Array formation enveloped the entire sect, the uneasiness in their hearts dissipated a little. Soon, a day passed. The 5 elders were filled with fear and anxiety. However, the distance between the two sects was very far. In addition, unlike the Great Qian royal family, they did not have the scrying orb, so they could not receive any definitive news for the time being. Could it be that the patriarch and the others have encountered the old monster of the Great Qian royal family? Or did the Great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate attack together? The possibility appeared in the minds of the third elder and the others, but they quickly rejected it. Even if the Great Qian royal family learned that the Xuanyan sect had destroyed the Qingyan sect, they would at most be furious, or they would kill a few elders as punishment. They would not kill the sect leader and vice-sect leaders of the Xuanyan sect. The most important thing is that the patriarch had already reached the peak of the core formation realm. There was no way they would go overboard in his presence. After all, if 2 peak core formation realm experts fought, the aftermath of the battle would destroy much of the Great Qian dynasty. The Great Qian royal family will certainly not allow this to happen, and would most likely choose to ignore the destruction of the Qingyan sect. Perhaps they would only be let off with a light warning. After all, if they attacked, but were unable to kill the patriarch, the entire Great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate would live in fear in the future. After all, who could stop a peak core formation realm assassin? Therefore, they decisively ruled out the possibility of the Great Qian royal family making a move. However, in the entire Great Qian dynasty, apart from the Great Qian royal family, who else possessed such strength? Could it be that a supreme unity realm expert had acted? Chapter 109. The Xuanyan sect shall be buried with its sins. Was it the Baijin Empire? At the thought of this, the pupils of several elders constricted. It was common knowledge that the Baji Empire and the Great Qian dynasty were mortal enemies. The conflict between the two empires was never-ending and, occasionally, a major war would break out. Most importantly, in terms of overall strength, the Baji Empire was stronger. The Baji Empire's royal family had 3 peak core formation realm experts. If those 3 old monsters attacked together, they might actually be able to kill the patriarch without giving him the chance to escape. However, the patriarch and the others had gone over to the Qingyan sect, so how could they encounter those old monsters from the Baji Empire? The distance between the Qingyan sect and the borders of the Great Qian dynasty was huge. How could they have? Wait, could it be that the Baji Empire had already infiltrated the Great Qian dynasty? Given the terrifying strength of those 3 old monsters, why did not they choose to destroy the Great Qian royal family instead? Why did they have to make a move against the Xuanyan sect? All sorts of thoughts and possibilities kept running through the minds of the elders. However, the thought of Yi Zan being the culprit did not cross their minds even once. It made sense. After all, Yi Zan was so young. No matter how monstrous his talent was, his actual strength was still limited. They had already filtered him out automatically. However, even after they racked their brains for a day, they still failed to think of a reasonable possibility. Buzz. As these elders were panicking, terrifying spiritual pressure suddenly descended upon those in the Xuanian sect. It made their bodies and souls tremble uncontrollably. The expressions of the elders changed drastically. They immediately flew over to the mountain peak. Moments later, a young man appeared within their field of vision. A young man hovered in the air with his hands behind his back. Yi Zan. Seeing this, everyone's pupils shrunk. Why would Yi Zan appear here? Furthermore, why was the power he was exuding so terrifying? Even the patriarch's aura had not reached such a level. Impossible. The eyes of the elders were filled with shock. At the same time, the Xuanian sect cultivators also spotted Yi Zan, and a sense of unease arose in their hearts. Faced with this terrifying pressure, they were as insignificant as ants. They saw Yi Zan hovering in midair. His god-slaying sword was emitting a terrifying blood-red murderous aura from the 7 blood-colored patterns on the sword. Yi Zan looked at the crowd expressionlessly and did not speak. They were just a bunch of ants who were about to die. There was no reason to waste his time speaking to them. Yi Zan, your cultivation realm. How is this possible? Why is your aura so terrifying? The elders could not help but tremble, and they suddenly understood. It turned out that the person who killed the patriarch, the sect leader, and the elders, was not someone from the Baji Empire or the Great Qian imperial family, but rather this young man in front of them. Yi Zan of the Qingyan sect. How was this even possible? This power that made even the space around him ripple clearly meant that Yi Zan had reached the peak of the core formation realm. In fact, it seemed that Yi Zan was much stronger than the patriarch. Yi Zan had reached the peak of the core formation realm, but the patriarch had also done the same. Was it actually possible that he killed the patriarch, sect leader, and the others by himself? Were you the one who killed the patriarch? The sect leader and the elders, did they all die at your hands? The third elder's lips trembled as he asked this question. He already knew the answer, but he still had to ask. He very much longed for Yi Zan to deny this. A young man who was only 20 years old had already reached the peak of the core formation realm. How was this possible? His heart was currently filled with shock and helplessness. As an elder of a top-ranked sect, he had heard of all kinds of strange things, but he had never seen anything like this. Yi Zan was simply too monstrous. Disregarding the Great Qian dynasty, there might not even be a cultivator in the entire Nanzhou region who had achieved such a feat at his age. That's right, everything was done by me. Do you find it hard to believe? Yi Zan raised his eyes slightly, and said indifferently. He suddenly changed his mind. Killing them off instantly was too merciful. Why not let them experience true despair? I was supposed to come looking for you guys to settle the score from back then, but I didn't expect you guys to come looking for me first. Did you really think that an old man that took forever to reach the peak of the core formation realm and some piddling core formation cultivators are enough to take my life? Like them, you are just ants in my eyes. As soon as he finished his words, Yi Zan slowly reached out his hand and held the god-slaying sword in front of him. The blood-colored patterns on the sword started emitting bright light. Boom. When the elders heard Yi Zan's words, their expressions changed drastically, and their eyes were filled with despair. It was really Yi Zan. The other party had actually killed all of the top experts of the Xuanian sect by himself. Only the higher-ups of the sect knew that the patriarch had reached the peak of the core formation realm, and that he had taken several hundred years to do so. The fact that he was mentioning it now meant that he had definitely encountered the patriarch. This meant that the patriarch had fallen by Yi Zan's hands. Swoosh. Moments later, the blood-red sword Qi soared into the sky and slashed toward the Grand Guardian Array formation. Accompanied by a series of cracking sounds, cracks appeared on the surface of the Grand Guardian Array formation, before it shattered completely. As the second-ranked top sect, the Xuanian sect's Guardian Array formation was not weak. It could only be shattered by a Unity Realm expert's attack. However, Yi Zan had destroyed the Grand Guardian Array formation with a single sword strike. Could it be that this guy's strength had already reached the Unity Realm? At the thought of this, the elders were engulfed by despair, and the Xuanian sect cultivators felt even more hopeless. Now, with Yi Zan overseeing the Qingyan sect, it was an invincible force within the Great Qian dynasty. After the Xuanian sect's patriarch died, no one in the sect was capable of resisting Yi Zan. Xuanian sect. Today, you shall all disappear. Be buried with your sins. As soon as he finished speaking, Yizan slowly raised the god-slaying sword. The tip of the sword released an incomparably terrifying sword chi hurricane, and the destructive spiritual pressure of a peak core formation realm expert also swept out. Chapter 110. Are you doubting me? As this spiritual pressure swept out, some of the weaker cultivators were crushed to death on the spot. Stop. However, just as the elders were about to give up, an angry roar suddenly rang out in the air. Moments later, an old man dressed in a golden robe suddenly appeared. His body exuded a powerful aura. It's the old king. Seeing this, the elders revealed hopeful and relieved expressions. The old king of the great Qian dynasty. With him around, Yizan would not dare to make a move. HMPH. Yizan smiled coldly, but his hands did not stop moving at all. What kind of joke was this? Even if the current king came today, he would not be able to stop him. Swoosh. The resplendent blood-red sword chi burst forth and filled the sky. All the elders could see was the blood-red sword chi hurricane. Boom. The elders were swallowed by the sword chi hurricane in an instant. At the same time, the three peaks belonging to the Xuanian sect, as well as countless cultivators, were also swallowed by the sword chi hurricane. Their bodies were cut into countless pieces by the sword chi. The mountains cracked and were turned into dust in an instant. When the attack dissipated, a trench that was hundreds of meters deep had appeared where the sect once stood. The mountain peaks had also been leveled. This was because Yizan had deliberately controlled his power. If he had fully unleashed his power, the Xuanian sect would not be the only thing annihilated. Everything within thousands of kilometers would have been turned into dust in an instant. Although Yizan showed no mercy to the members of the Xuanian sect, there were still many treasures hidden in their vaults. This could not be wasted. Whoosh. At this moment, the old king arrived. He hovered in the air, and his gaze was fixed on the trench below him. He had an ugly expression on his face, which displayed both shock and anger, and a tinge of fear. Yi Zan. From that sword strike, he had already sensed Yi Zan's cultivation level. Peak of the core formation realm. He was not unfamiliar with Yi Zan. The strongest genius in the past 1,000 years of the Qingyan sect, and the strongest genius of the younger generation of the great Qian dynasty who had entered the core formation realm at the age of 20. However, how had this guy reached the peak of the core formation realm this quickly? It was absolutely absurd. Although his heart was filled with shock, the truth was standing right in front of him, and there was no room for him to deny it. He had received the information from the scrying orb, which had rendered him speechless and shocked, but he quickly calmed down. After careful analysis, he believed that there had to have been some sort of mistake in the process of transmitting the information. The transmitted message did not say that Yizan had reached the peak of the core formation realm, but it did say that Yizan had killed the sect leader of the Xuanian sect with a single sword strike. The cultivation level of the sect leader of the Xuanian sect had reached the advanced stage of the golden core realm. As such, there was only one possible conclusion if Yizan had been able to kill the other party so easily, which was that Yizan had reached the peak of the core formation realm. However, that would mean that he and Patriarch Minghe were clearly at the same cultivation level. How was Yizan to kill the latter? It was precisely because of this uncertainty that those who transmitted the information did not dare to offer any speculations regarding Yizan's cultivation level. The old king had felt that the information transmitted was misleading. However, he was now petrified, as if struck by lightning. Yizan really was a peak core formation realm expert. He vaguely remembered that a few months ago, he had been shocked to hear the news of Yizan reaching the middle stage of the Zuden realm. Moreover, back then, he had requested an investigation into Yizan's background and achievements. After reading the report, he made a prediction. He predicted that it was very likely that Yizan would reach the true core realm at around 25, and the golden core realm at around 40. However, reality had shattered his prediction. Within less than a year, Yizan had reached the peak of the core formation realm. How did this guy do it? Could it be that this guy had been faking his cultivation level this entire time? Was he forced to reveal his true strength because the Qingyan sect was facing disaster and destruction? Still, that did not change the fact that there was a 20-year-old peak core formation realm cultivation standing in front of him. Disregarding the great Qian dynasty, even the entire Nanzhou region did not have a cultivator as monstrously talented as Yizan. Although the great Qian dynasty's ranking was insignificant in the Nanzhou region, it did not mean that they were not well informed. They had a good understanding of the top-ranked empires, super sects and major families. Even so, none of these forces had cultivators who reached the peak of the core formation realm at the age of 20. Huff. At the thought of this, the old king had to take deep breaths to calm himself down. Then he turned to Yizan. Yizan, why didn't you listen to me? If Yizan had only been at the middle stage of the Zuden realm, he would have slapped him to death long ago. How could a king's dignity be challenged like this? You dare to order me around? Seeing this, Yizan raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the old king expressionlessly. Seeing this, the old king's facial expression changed. This Yizan is too arrogant. I am, after all, the old king of the Great Qian dynasty. As a cultivator of the Great Qian dynasty, you should know that the Great Qian royal family has established an iron rule that the top 10 sects are not allowed to destroy each other. No matter what the reason is, a top-ranked sect cannot be destroyed. Otherwise, you will face the wrath of the entire royal family. The old king's gaze fell on Yizan. He was already trying his best to suppress the anger in his heart. Despite how angry he sounded, he did not want to offend such a monstrous and terrifying genius. After all, Yizan was in the same cultivation realm as him. Even if he was slightly stronger than Yizan, it would be difficult to kill him. Moreover, with Yizan's terrifying talent, it would not take long for him to completely surpass him. At that time, the Great Qian royal family would face Yizan's terrifying fury. This was not a price he could pay. Chapter 111. If you try to stop me, I'll bury you with them. Of course, even if he really had the ability to kill Yizan, he would not do it. After all, if a genius as monstrous as Yizan died, it would be a great loss to the Great Qian dynasty. If the Great Qian dynasty fought against the other empires, Yizan would be a crucial asset to their victory. However, even so, he was still very angry and wanted to teach Yizan a lesson. The Xuanian sect attacked the Qingyan sect. Why didn't you appear and say this earlier? Those who intend to destroy the Qingyan sect and kill me, Yizan, deserve to die. From now on, there will never be a Xuanian sect in this world. Mark my words. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword qi reappeared, glowing an ominous blood red. It targeted the remaining Xuanian sect cultivators. Yizan was not a merciful person, and he knew very well that if he did not uproot and exterminate their foundation completely, there was a chance they would rise again. Moreover, all the cultivators of the Xuanian sect had the blood of innocent civilians on their hands. Which one of them was not wicked? None. Such people deserve to be killed. You. Hearing this, the old king's facial expression changed. He had not expected Yizan to disregard him entirely. It even looked like the latter did not care about the Great Qian royal family. Yizan squinted his eyes and focused. The tyrannical sword qi from the sword overlord physique surged forth, and then transformed into sword intent. His second-level sword intent was put on full display. In an instant, the clouds in the sky dissipated. The only thing remaining in the sky was his incomparably resplendent sword qi. At the same time, Yizan, like an emperor, pronounced his judgment over the Xuanian sect. I, Yizan, will exterminate the Xuanian sect today, and no one can stop me. If you dare to interfere, I don't mind burying you with them. His voice was like thunder, resounding across the sky. His words brooked no argument. The old king's expression changed. His eyes were filled with shock. Was this Yizan's true strength? Had he not used his full strength earlier when destroying the Grand Guardian Array formation? This guy was too terrifying. Even he could not help but tremble when faced with this tyrannical sword qi. Even if he went all out, he probably would not be able to block this sword strike. Could this be sword intent? Suddenly, the old king's eyes widened in shock and realization. That was a realm that every cultivator dreamed of achieving. Throughout the Great Qian dynasty, among the cultivators he knew, there was still no one who had comprehended sword intent. However, there were quite a few cultivators who were stuck at the threshold of comprehending sword intent. For example, the leader of the Qingyan sect, Wan Shanhai. However, he did not know that Wan Shanhai had already comprehended his own sword intent thanks to Yizan. He did not expect that this guy had not only reached the peak of the core formation realm, but had also comprehended sword intent. Not only that, the old king also sensed an extremely special power within the aura that Yizan emitted. It seemed that Yizan had awakened some kind of sword Dao physique. The tyrannical sword qi that he released should be closely related to that sword Dao physique. The old king was completely stunned. He felt that his worldview had shattered. How many secrets was this guy hiding? Was he even displaying his true strength now? He was no longer sure. With this guy's current strength, even if the ancestor personally acted, it might not be enough to defeat him. This guy was probably now the strongest cultivator in the Great Qian dynasty. That's right. The ancestor of the Great Qian royal family was cultivating the deepest part of the royal palace. Their ancestor, like Minghe, had survived that shocking battle. Most importantly, other than the old king, no one knew that the ancestor was still alive. Even the current king of the Great Qian dynasty and the Grand Elder of the Qian Gate were not aware of his existence. Moreover, the ancestor already had half a foot into the Unity realm, and he already started condensing the divine element that was characteristic of Unity realm experts. It was a pity that he was still stuck at the threshold of the Unity realm. The old king knew very well that the ancestor's strength was far beyond his own. However, when he sensed Yi Zan's terrifying and overbearing sword intent, he knew very well that even if the ancestor personally descended, he might not be a match for Yi Zan. Thinking this, the old king no longer had any thoughts of stopping Yi Zan, and he did not dare to display even the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Moments, as the old king watched, the tyrannical sword chi transformed into a rain of swords that filled the sky and fell toward the cultivators of the Xuanian sect. None of the Xuanian sect cultivators survived. Of course, there were still some cultivators who were training in the outside world, but Yi Zan could not be bothered with these. The cultivators of the Xuanian sect had always been arrogant and despotic. As long as the news of the destruction of the Xuanian sect spread, there would naturally be people who would deal with them. Whoosh! Yi Zan stretched out his hand and made a tapping gesture. He broke the restrictions around the palaces and main hall. Then, his spiritual sense swept out, searching for heavenly treasures in one of the elders' palaces. Within a short while, Yi Zan finished collecting all of the heavenly treasures there. Whether it was low level or high level, whether it was functional or broken, as long as it was slightly useful, Yi Zan took them all. Anyway, when he gave these things to his disciples, he would receive a reward from the system. Whoosh! After collecting the spoils from this palace, Yi Zan hurried over to the next one. Soon, every palace, hall and vault in the Xuanian sect had been searched thoroughly by Yi Zan. Seeing this scene, the eyes of the old king flickered. No matter what, the Xuanian sect was also the second-ranked sect in the Great Qian dynasty. They had countless heavenly treasures, and many of these were extremely rare. Even though he was tempted, he could only grit his teeth and endure. How could he dare to interfere? Suddenly, Yi Zan took out some bloodstones from an elder's palace. When the old king sensed the mixed qi and blood essence contained in the bloodstones, his expression changed. Seeing this, Yi Zan sneered and casually threw a few bloodstones over to the old king. What are these? After the old king received the bloodstones, he was stunned. When he extended his spiritual sense into the bloodstones, and detected the energy contained within it, his face immediately turned livid. The bloodstones contained a lot of mixed qi and blood essence. Obviously, these had been harvested from ordinary people and weak cultivators. When the old king discovered that there were still many bloodstones in the palaces, he immediately came to a conclusion. The Xuanian sect had been collecting qi and blood essence. He then recalled the strength of the patriarch Minghe. He had not known that the patriarch of the Xuanian sect was still alive, but according to the information he had received from the scrying orb, the patriarch had reached the peak of the core formation realm. He had some doubts at that time, but now that he had witnessed Yi Zan's strength, he knew that the Xuanian sect's patriarch had also reached the peak of the core formation realm. Chapter 112. Don't be rash. Most importantly, he was no match for Yi Zan, much less the Xuanian sect's patriarch. The old king looked at the bloodstones in his hand, and his gaze gradually turned cold. He had already come to a conclusion as to how the Xuanian sect's patriarch had reached the peak of the core formation realm. Elder Yi Zan. The old king glanced at Yi Zan and said cautiously. Although he had wanted to stop Yi Zan earlier, he gave up decisively when he saw the overbearing sword chi the other party had released. Since the two had not completely fallen out, there was still a chance for reconciliation. What's the matter? Yi Zan was completely focused on collecting the heavenly treasures. Were it not for the fact that the other party had some status as the old king of the Great Qian dynasty, he would not have bothered with him. The old king did not display the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. Instead, he asked in a serious tone, Elder Yi, has the Xuanian sect's patriarch reached the peak of the core formation realm? Yes. Yi Zan turned his head to look at the old king and replied indifferently. Hearing this, the old king was shocked. Now he was finally sure that the Xuanian sect was secretly collecting the qi and blood essence, and had not hesitated to slaughter ordinary people for this purpose. It was likely that the patriarch of the Xuanian sect had broken through by relying on the qi and blood essence collected from these ordinary people. How many people had they killed in order to collect enough qi and blood essence for the patriarch to break through? Thinking this, the old king's eyes turned cold. The Xuanian sect truly deserved to die. Yi Zan's answer also dispelled the last bit of doubt in the old king's heart. Yi Zan had indeed killed all the top experts of the Xuanian sect by himself. While rejoicing, the old king was also slightly relieved. Fortunately, he had not stopped Yi Zan earlier, otherwise, he might have followed in the footsteps of the Xuanian sect's patriarch. Suddenly, the old king recalled something, and his expression changed drastically. Not good. The Qian Gate. The Grand Elder of the Qian Gate had already gone over to the Qingyan sect. It was over. If he really harmed the cultivators of the Qingyan sect, what should he do? The old king became extremely anxious. If the Grand Elder really attacked the Qingyan sect, then the Qian Gate and the great Qian royal family would be doomed. Elder Yi. The old king quickly looked at Yi Zan. Is there anything else? Hearing this, Yi Zan immediately showed a trace of impatience. Li Yan has already gone over to the Qingyan sect. Li Yan is the Grand Elder of the Qian Gate, and his strength is on the same level as mine. The old king said anxiously. If Li Yan really attacked the Qingyan sect, then they would become Yi Zan's enemies. Moreover, Li Yan was not aware of Yi Zan's strength. Oh, you guys responded quite quickly. But it doesn't matter. If he really dares to make a move against the Qingyan sect, he definitely won't be able to leave alive. Yi Zan said indifferently. He then continued to plunder the heavenly treasures. Hearing this, the old king was shocked, but did not doubt Yi Zan's words. Although he did not know what Yi Zan had left behind in the Qingyan sect, for the other party to be so confident that it would bury Li Yan there forever, he knew that it had to be some sort of extremely powerful trump card. What should he do? His cultivation level was more or less the same as Li Yan's. Other than the ancestor, who had half a foot into the Unity realm, he and Li Yan were the strongest experts of the Great Qian dynasty. As such, Li Yan was very confident in his own strength. Moreover, his thought process was not much different from the old king's. He also thought that the strength of Yi Zan and the Xuanian sect's patriarch was misreported. The old king was quite lucky. He had already confirmed Yi Zan's strength before doing anything stupid and no longer dared to offend him. In comparison, Li Yan knew nothing. He had no way of knowing whether Li Yan would attack the Qingyan sect. Although Li Yan would not destroy the Qingyan sect, he did not know whether he would heavily punish or kill a few elders. If Li Yan really attacked the Qingyan sect, there would be no turning back. Yi Zan's strength was so terrifying. If he attacked, even if the great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate joined hands, they would not be able to withstand it. Li Yan, you had better not be rash. Wait, don't I have the scrying orb? How could I forget about this treasure? However, the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect were far apart, and beyond the range of the scrying orb. Elder Yi Zan, I have something to do, so I'll be leaving first. The old king left quickly after saying that. He turned into a streak of light and disappeared. Yi Zan did not pay too much attention to it. Instead, he continued busying himself by looting heavenly treasures. The Xuanian sect was the second-ranked sect in the Great Qian dynasty. As such, they had an abundance of heavenly treasures. There were high, middle, and low-grade spiritual artifacts, as well as some rare spiritual artifacts and the like. Whatever Yi Zan felt might be even slightly useful, he stuffed directly into the system's storage space. For example, essence condensation pills, body refining pills, black poison pills, purple spirit pills, soul returning pills, spring return herb, heart fog herb, red lotus flower. Although these things were not of much use to Yi Zan, he had the system as a cheat. By giving these things to his disciples, he could receive rewards that might be useful to him. Moreover, the Moon Demon Mystic Realm would open soon, which might give him the opportunity to take in new disciples. Every new disciple he took in would be another source of system rewards. Of course, not all the heavenly treasures that he collected from the Xuanian sect had to be given to his disciples. He could also give them to the Qingyan sect to increase the strength of the sect. Yi Zan was not an ungrateful person. When he had been severely injured, the Qingyan sect had resolutely chosen to stand by his side. Naturally, he would not forget this favor. Moreover, there were many heavenly treasures, and plenty to go around. Most were not even useful for his disciples though, much less himself. It's a pity. Given the status of the Xuanian sect, their treasury should have been even more abundant. Their resources were probably consumed by that old thing. Despite that, it took him hundreds of years to reach the peak of the core formation realm. What a waste. So many heavenly treasures were wasted by that guy. After collecting all the heavenly treasures, Yizan could not help but display a pained expression. Although his storage ring was already full of heavenly treasures, he was still not satisfied. When he thought of the heavenly treasures that were wasted on Minghe, he felt frustrated. Of course, he did not feel that it was too much of a loss. After all, the storage rings of the core formation realm elders he had killed yesterday were all in his hands. Chapter 113. The Grand Elder of the Qian Gate. It was common knowledge that core formation experts were rich. As such, how could Yizan allow such riches to escape his grasp? Whoosh! Yizan moved, and his figure suddenly appeared several hundred meters away. Although the 5 elders from before had long been reduced to ashes, their storage rings were still intact. Storage rings were forged from extremely rare and sturdy materials. Even with his strength, he could not destroy them. Moments later, Yizan spread out his spiritual sense, and soon located the storage rings of the 5 elders. When he looked into the storage rings, he smiled. As expected of the storage rings of a top-ranked sect's elders, they were full of treasures. Other than 1 or 2 elders, who had comparatively less, the rest were quite rich. After some time, Yizan had completed the plundering of the Xuanian sect. It's time to take in another disciple. Yizan touched his chin and muttered to himself. Then his figure turned into a stream of light and headed toward the Qingyan sect. Whoosh! Yizan's figure flew through the sky rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he crossed a distance of dozens of kilometers. Not long after, Yizan spotted a familiar figure. The old king also sensed a familiar aura. When he turned around and saw Yizan, he was shocked. This guy was so fast. Was he really a peak core formation realm cultivator like himself? Why was there such a difference between them? Well, apart from having condensed sufficient divine element, Yizan had already met the standards of a unity realm cultivator in other aspects. When the old king witnessed Yizan's speed, he knew that if he had tried to escape from Yizan after fighting him, he would not have had the chance to escape. Yizan glanced at the old king indifferently. He did not slow down, but passed him in an instant and left him in the dust. Soon, a large gap formed between the two figures. At this moment, the scrying orb in the old king's hand flickered with a bright light. He immediately stopped in his tracks and infused his spiritual power into the scrying orb to transmit information. Hopefully, Li Yan had not acted rashly. The old king prayed fervently that this was the case. The Qingyan sect. After the Xuanian sect's attack was resolved, everyone finally relaxed. The injured cultivators all returned to their own cultivation abodes to recuperate. Many people were digesting the sword intent that Yizan had displayed. Everything seemed to be returning to its previous calm state. However, suddenly, a terrifying aura suddenly descended on the Qingyan sect, shattering the peaceful atmosphere. An old man in a fiery red robe hovered in the sky. He had fiery red eyes, and powerful energy fluctuations radiated from his body. Although this aura was deliberately restrained, it still made everyone feel pressured and fearful. It was because everyone could clearly sense that this newcomer's power was no weaker than that of the Xuanian sect's patriarch. Although this person was still inferior to Elder Yizan, he was an invincible powerhouse to the people present. Elder Yizan had just left, and another peak core formation realm expert had arrived. Did the heavens want to destroy the Qingyan sect? Wan Shanhai suppressed the uneasiness in the heart and hurriedly showed himself to speak with this expert. Unexpectedly, this person was from the Qian Gate, and he was their grand elder, Li Yan. The other party was different from the patriarch of the Xuanian sect. Li Yan was widely recognized as a peak core formation realm expert in the Great Qian dynasty, and was extremely powerful. Wan Shanhai had not expected such a terrifying expert to come to the Qingyan sect. After finding out the identity of the other party, the uneasiness in Wan Shanhai's heart dissipated significantly. The other party must have come because of Yizan. He had not expected the Qian Gate to have learned of Yizan's feat of killing so many top experts of the Xuanian sect so quickly. The other party might punish the Qingyan sect, but it would not be to the extent of killing them. Is Yizan here? Li Yan hovered in the sky. His eyes were filled with indifference as he looked down at the cultivators of the Qingyan sect from above. Elder Yizan has already left. We're not sure where he went, Wan Shanhai quickly replied. He was smart enough not to mention that Yizan was heading to the Xuanian sect to settle the score. After all, if Li Yan got angry because of this, he might attack the Qingyan sect. Now that Yi Zan was not present, there was no one here who could deal with Li Yan. Moreover, Yi Zan's attack on the Xuanian sect was undoubtedly a violation of the rules that the great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate had jointly established, therefore, this matter could not be exposed. Oh, hearing this, Li Yan sneered. Does Wan Shanhai really think that I am a 3-year-old child? How could he hope to hide such a thing from me? Yi Zan must have gone over to the mysterious dark sect by now, right? However, he was not anxious at all. With the old king overseeing matters at the Xuanian sect, what could Yi Zan do? Then, he thought about the reports of Yi Zan's achievements. He was still very doubtful of the veracity of the information he had received. Had Yi Zan really reached the peak of the core formation realm? How could a 20-year-old young man do so much? It was too unbelievable. There had to be a problem with the information. Could it be that an unknown force had interfered in the battle between the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect? Yi Zan, has he reached the peak of the core formation realm? Also, has the patriarch of the Xuanian sect reached the peak of the core formation realm? Did the patriarch and elders of the Xuanian sect really die at the hands of Yi Zan? Li Yan asked the 3 most crucial questions immediately. He wanted to see how Wan Shanhai would answer them. As the sect leader of the Qingyan sect, Wan Shanhai naturally knew the truth. He wanted to use Wan Shanhai's words to verify whether the information he had received was true or not. Wan Shanhai was just a true core realm cultivator. He would not dare to lie in front of him. Wan Shanhai hesitated and did not know how to answer. If he admitted it, would that not prove that Yi Zan had killed a top-ranked sect's patriarch and leader? At that time, Yi Zan and the Qingyan sect would be targeted by the great Qian royal family and the Qian Gate. 1. However, if he denied it, would that be equivalent to deceiving them? When they found out later, the result would be pretty much the same. Besides, Wan Shanhai did not want to deny it. Yi Zan's achievements were also the pride of the Qingyan sect. Moreover, Yi Zan was really strong now, so why did he need to bow down to others? Wan Shanhai, answer my question. Otherwise. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Yan snorted coldly, and his terrifying spiritual pressure engulfed Wan Shanhai. Sensing this, Wan Shanhai's expression changed. After Yu and Li Qingyan, who were in the crowd, sensed this terrifying pressure, 2 jade tokens suddenly appeared in their hands. If Li Yan really dared to make a move against the Qingyan sect, they would crush the jade tokens without hesitation. Chapter 114. Came in a hurry and left in a hurry. Although Li Yan seemed extremely terrifying, their teacher had been able to kill a similarly strong expert with a single sword strike. Previously, Minghe had also behaved incomparably arrogantly, without regard for the lives of the Qingyan sect cultivators. However, when their teacher appeared, he was so scared that he ran with his tail tucked between his legs, and died soon after. As long as they used the trump cards left behind by their teacher, even if they could not kill Li Yan, they would at least be able to heavily injure him. Most importantly, they had 2 jade tokens. Of course, if Li Yan did not act rashly, Yu and Li Qingyan would not use the jade tokens so easily. The reason why they took out the jade tokens was because they sensed that Li Yan had targeted Wan Shanhai. The actions of these 2 purple spirit realm cultivators were of course noticed by Li Yan. Immediately, a cold smile hung from the corners of his mouth. They were merely 2 weak purple spirit realm cultivators, yet they still wanted to resist him. Just as the pressure in his body was about to sweep the Qingyan sect, he frowned. He suddenly sensed that the scrying orb in his storage ring was vibrating frantically. The scrying orb contained a wisp of his spiritual sense. As such, if someone contacted him with the scrying orb, he would instantly know. Li Yan's spiritual sense sensed that the scrying orb was rapidly pulsating. Clearly, something urgent had happened. Li Yan immediately stopped what he was doing. His spiritual sense gradually connected to the scrying orb. Li Yan, Li Yan, Li Yan. Moments later, an urgent spiritual sense message was suddenly transmitted into his mind. Li Yan's expression changed, and he used his spiritual sense to question the old king. Old king, why did you contact me? Li Yan, are you at the Qingyan sect? The old king transmitted another message into his mind. That's right, you didn't hurt the cultivators of the Qingyan sect, right? The old king could not help but feel very nervous after sending this message. These ants are full of lies. I plan to teach them a good lesson. Li Yan said. Hurry up and stop. You mustn't act rashly. The old king frantically sent a message to Li Yan. What exactly happened on your end? Li Yan's expression changed when he received the message transmission. You don't have to bother with that for now. You have to remember not to attack them. If you have released your spiritual pressure, withdraw it now. Otherwise, the Qian Gate will definitely be in great trouble. The old king did not explain, but quickly gave him instructions instead. It was not until Li Yan confirmed that he had withdrawn his spiritual pressure that the old king let out a sigh of relief, and then explained what was going on. From Yizan destroying the Grand Guardian Array formation with one sword strike, to Yizan's sword intent, the old king told Li Yan about everything that he had witnessed. Li Yan's expression changed drastically, and his eyes were filled with shock. How was this possible? The information they had received was actually true. Had it been told to him by someone, Li Yan would definitely doubt it, but since it was the old king saying it, he had to believe it. Not only did the two come from the same faction, but they were also close friends. There was no way he would joke around when it came to important matters. Then, how strong is Yizan? Li Yan asked somewhat nervously. I can't take one strike from him, the old king replied. As soon as he heard that, Li Yan's face instantly turned pale, and beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. Like him, the old king was a peak core formation realm expert. Despite that, he still could not withstand a single sword strike from Yizan. His strength was almost identical to the old king's. Did that not mean that Yizan could kill him with a single sword strike? It was already incredible enough that Yizan had reached the peak of the core formation realm, especially at the age of 20. Yet now he was being told that the other party actually had the ability to kill another peak core formation realm expert with a single sword strike. Was this not too outrageous? Fortunately, I didn't act rashly. Thinking this, Li Yan briefly revealed an expression of lingering fear. Fortunately, the old king had contacted him in time. Otherwise, once his spiritual pressure swept out, even if he did not have any killing intent, as long as he harmed the Qingyan sect cultivators in some shape or form, it was very likely that he would really anger Yizan. According to the old king's description, Yizan was extremely overbearing. He had almost killed the old king with one sword strike in the Xuanian sect for trying to interfere. Wait a minute, it seemed that the cultivation of those two women just now had reached the purple spirit realm. Suddenly, Li Yan recalled Yu and Li Qingyan's cultivation levels. Although the elders of the Huoli and Shenshin sects could not sense the actual cultivation level of the two girls, it did not mean that Li Yan could not as well. Yu and Li Qingyan's current attainments in the aura concealment technique were still lacking compared to Yizan's mastery of the technique. Although they could hide their cultivation levels from ordinary core formation realm cultivators, they could not hide it from a peak core formation realm expert like Li Yan. Although Li Yan could not tell what Yu's and Li Qingyan's specific cultivation level was, he could clearly tell that both girls had reached the purple spirit realm. They were so young, but had already reached the purple spirit realm. When had the Qingyan sect recruited such monstrously talented disciples? Wait, could it be that these two studied under Yizan? Thinking this, Li Yan trembled briefly. Although Yu and Li Qingyan were not even 18 years old, they had both reached the purple spirit realm. Moreover, he had never heard of their names in the Great Qian dynasty. Moreover, when faced with the threat of his spiritual pressure, these two girls had not displayed even the slightest inkling of fear. Instead, they held those jade tokens in their hands, as if they were eager to try them out. Connecting all the dots together, Li Yan broke out into cold sweat right there and then. Such freakish genius cultivators, who else could they be other than Yizan's disciples? He had actually thought about crippling Yizan's disciples' cultivation. Was he not courting death? Those jade tokens they were holding were definitely given to them by Yizan too. In that case, those jade tokens probably contained Yizan's power. Thinking this, Li Yan shivered in fear. Oh my god, I almost delivered myself to the gates of hell just now. Li Yan's mood kept fluctuating. His previous condescending attitude had long disappeared. His facial expressions kept changing as well. Whoosh. After some time, Li Yan took a deep breath, and then turned into a streak of light and disappeared. He left as fast as lightning, without any hesitation. It was as if he was being chased by a ghost. Seeing this, the Qingyan sect cultivators were dumbfounded. Had the Grand Elder of the Qian Gate not come here to blame us? Why did he leave? Moreover, his facial expression as he left was very strange. Shock was mixed with fear. In addition to fear, there was also a look of relief. Could it be that something big had taken place at the Qian Gate? Most of them were confused. Only Wan Shanhai and the others who had witnessed Li Yan's continuously changing expressions from close up had some inkling of the truth. When they thought about Yizan's strength, they all came to the conclusion that things had played out in this manner because of Yizan. Still, no matter what the reason was, at the very least, the crisis of the Qingyan sect had been resolved. Chapter 115. Sea of Blood, Scenes from an Ancient Battle. As night fell, a bright beam of light descended upon the Qingyan sect. When it dissipated, it revealed Yi Zan's figure. After Yi Zan returned to the Qingyan sect, he immediately went back to Lingju Peak, and into the cultivation room. He slowly sorted through the loot he had obtained from the Xuanian sect. Now, he was the sole owner of all the heavenly treasures of a top-ranked sect, which was a rather amazing thing in itself. With sufficient heavenly treasures, he would be able to turn even the weakest mortal into a powerful cultivator. Although Minghe had wasted a lot of the heavenly treasures to treat his injuries and break through, the Xuanian sect was still a very rich one. Soon after, Yi Zan took out the storage rings that he had collected and sorted them out. The items inside were divided into cultivation methods, weapons, pills, martial techniques, and so on. Of the vast amount of resources, most were common resources that the sect used to bestow upon their disciples, which accounted for 80% of the total. The remaining 20% comprised rarer heavenly treasures, which were basically sect leader and elders' use. Among them, Patriarch Minghe's storage ring contained the most heavenly treasures. After all, this guy had lived for hundreds of years. Although he had not shown himself during this period, he was still the patriarch of the Xuanian sect. Moreover, the sect leader and the elders were all supporting him. In order to aid his breakthrough, they provided him with all kinds of heavenly treasures. Among these, Yi Zan discovered some extremely strange artifacts, as well as some unconventional cultivation methods. However, he only took a brief look at them before throwing them into the corner. Although these cultivation methods had peculiar functions, they were not of much use to him. For example, bloodthirsty magic, demonization, and so on were all unconventional cultivation methods. Even if he gave these cultivation methods to his disciple, he probably would not receive anything useful in return from the system. Especially, demonization. Although it could temporarily increase a cultivator's strength, it only did so by burning one's own cultivation foundation. If used excessively, it would cause great damage to one's own cultivation foundation. However, Yi Zan did not throw them away. Instead, he kept them. If there was a chance later, he could give them a good try and see if the system rewards for these unconventional methods could surprise him. Of course, he did not have such thoughts at the moment. After all, he only had 2 disciples. How could he test such cultivation methods on them? The most important thing now was to give his disciples the resources that would be most helpful to their cultivation. For example, the purple spirit pills, the soul returning pills, the blood chi pills, and so on. There were many of these pills. Among them, the blood chi pills were peak 3rd grade pills. It could help cultivators condense chi and blood essence in their bodies. Unfortunately, there were only 2 of these pills. In fact, Minghe only had 3 blood chi pills. He only had the heart to use one when he broke through. Most of the time, he relied on absorbing the chi and blood essence from the bloodstones to condense the blood-red strands. However, this had now benefited Yi Zan. After some time, Yi Zan finally finished classifying the heavenly treasures he had obtained. It was worth mentioning that among them were some heavenly treasures that could increase a cultivator's innate bone value and comprehension value, which were representative of a cultivator's talent level. If Yi Zan could increase his innate bone value and comprehension value to the upper limit, whatever it was, even if he could no longer obtain that category of rewards from the system, it would be worth it. After all, his cultivation speed would be maxed out at that point. Therefore, Yi Zan would not let any such heavenly treasures slip through his fingers. Still, it was a pity that such heavenly treasures were extremely rare. Even the second-ranked Xuanian sect only had 3 of them. Whoosh. After sorting everything, Yi Zan took a deep breath and then took out the blood-colored energy from his storage ring. This was the energy that had flown out from Minghe's dantian when he had killed the latter. From the looks of it, Minghe seemed to be unable to control this blood-colored energy. At first glance, this clump of blood-colored energy not only looked like some kind of natural energy, but also seemed to contain some measure of spiritual sense. Then, Yi Zan reached out and made a grabbing gesture, and the clump of blood-colored energy reappeared in his palm. His own chi and blood essence surged forth and wrapped themselves around it. Moments later, Yi Zan's spiritual sense swept out and slowly examined the blood-colored energy. The clump of blood-colored energy vibrated wildly within the energy barrier formed by Yi Zan's chi and blood essence, but to no avail. I've got it. This is a clump of remnant spiritual power of a cultivator that still possesses spiritual sense. After a moment, Yi Zan revealed an expression of realization. He hesitated briefly before his own spiritual sense surged into the clump of blood-colored energy. Boom! When Yi Zan's spiritual sense entered the clump of blood-colored energy, a blood-tinged image suddenly appeared in his mind. This image was filled with mountains of corpses and seas of blood, and the entire world was red. Countless corpses were piled up on the ground, and the air was filled with the stench of blood and death. Suddenly, the blood-colored world shook violently. The corpses piled up on the ground let out crackling sounds and instantly came to life. Then, they glowed with brilliant light and stood up. Their bodies exuded powerful auras. Each of them held a high-grade weapon in their hands. Then, they began to fight with a blood-colored skeleton that was condensed from strange blood-colored energy. There were countless Zuden, True Core, and Golden Core realm cultivators. However, even the Peak Core Formation realm cultivators were cannon fodder in this great war. Apart from that, there were even more terrifying cultivators who attacked. With just a slight wave, these cultivators easily tore through space, and with world-shaking power, they attacked the blood-colored skeleton. Chapter 116. You dare to destroy my spiritual sense. However, the scythe in the blood-colored skeleton's hand emitted an even more terrifying destructive power. The army of cultivators was completely unable to stop its advance. Every time the blood-colored scythe struck, countless core formation realm cultivators would fall. Apart from this, the blood-colored scythe also emitted strands of strange blood-colored energy that crazily devoured the bodies of those cultivators. As the two sides fought, the world trembled crazily. Cracks appeared in space, swallowing and spitting out the terrifying power of the void beyond. Some cultivators below the core formation realm were directly devoured by the void. In addition, the violent spatial cracks shattered into shards of light, destroying everything around them. Whoosh! At this moment, an extremely terrifying energy blade rushed toward Yi Zan's spiritual sense. Seeing this, Yi Zan's expression changed. His spiritual power surged and formed an energy barrier in front of him. However, when the energy blade collided with it, the barrier cracked. At the same time, Yi Zan's spiritual sense also retreated, his face somewhat pale. There was indeed remnant spiritual power left in the clump of blood-colored energy. What he had seen earlier were the last memories of the owner of that spiritual power. Why would such energy exist in the body of the patriarch of the Xuanian sect? Thinking this, Yi Zan frowned. He had thought that the clump of blood-colored energy was some sort of spiritual object, but he had not expected that it was the remnant spiritual power of a cultivator and that there were still memories stored within it. This was completely useless to him. Yi Zan immediately waved his hand, and the tyrannical sword chi from the sword overlord physique surged out and, combined with his second-level sword intent, instantly destroyed the clump of blood-colored energy. Impudent! You dare to destroy my spiritual sense! Before the spiritual sense completely dissipated, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Yi Zan frowned. What was going on? His expression immediately turned vigilant. His spiritual sense swept out and carefully observed the surroundings. Only when he confirmed that nothing unusual had happened did he heave a sigh of relief. That old geezer Ming, he probably did not know that the clump of blood-colored energy contained someone's spiritual sense. However, despite Yi Zan's current strength, he actually had been able to detect or sense the owner of that voice at all. This was enough to tell him just how powerful the owner of that voice was. Yi Zan felt a sudden sense of urgency to increase his strength. In a few days, the Moon Demon Mystic Realm would open. At that time, many genius cultivators from the various empires and sects would make their way there. Yi Zan planned to take in a few disciples during this period. Although his future disciples' talent levels did not matter much to him, if their innate bone and comprehension values were extremely outstanding, then the system rewards he would receive in return for his efforts would be quite considerable. He planned to take this time to enter secluded cultivation until the Moon Demon Mystic Realm opened in order to refine the power of the 7th grade Nirvana pill and see if he could reach the Unity Realm. He had already reached the limits of the Core Formation Realm. His golden core power, and the chi and blood essence in his dantian, had gradually fused, giving birth to the divine element. In order to truly enter the Unity Realm, he had to use this divine element to refine his physical body, from the meridians, bones, and internal organs, to the 7 orifices, and so on. Moreover, the process of refining one's physical body was also extremely dangerous. The divine element not only possessed extremely strong vitality, but also extremely terrifying destructive power. In order to completely fuse his physical body with the divine element, he had to destroy his own cells and then reconstruct them. The process was to condense the divine element in one's dantian and use it to destroy the cells in his body. Then, one would use the powerful vitality contained in the divine element to reconstruct the cells. The destructive power of the divine element was extremely violent and difficult to control. The slightest bit of carelessness could result in irreparable damage to his cultivation foundation. There were even some cultivators who died on the spot when the violent destructive power went out of control. However, if the cultivator succeeded, they would undergo a qualitative change and reach a new level. The unity realm was divided into 9 levels. However, if a cultivator possessed a powerful spiritual sense, the danger of breaking through would be greatly reduced. After all, spiritual sense was the key to controlling the divine element. I wonder when I'll be able to get my hands on a spiritual sense cultivation method. There were indeed spiritual sense cultivation methods in the Tianyuan continent, but they were extremely rare. At the very least, none existed in the Great Qian dynasty. Yizan had never left the Great Qian dynasty. Furthermore, he was not even sure if such a cultivation method existed in the Nanzhou region. However, if he encountered it, he would definitely do his best to obtain it. Even the lowest grade spiritual sense cultivation method was fine. After all, he could obtain a higher grade one by giving it to his disciples. Yizan then put aside the distracting thoughts in his mind, and entered secluded cultivation. During this period, the battle between the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect spread throughout the Great Qian dynasty. Whether it was the royal family or the common folk, everyone was discussing this topic. When the powerful cultivators in the Great Qian dynasty heard the news, they were even more shocked than the common folk. After all, only cultivators at their level could understand how terrifying Yizan's cultivation level was. In the eyes of those ordinary people, Yizan was very powerful, and they even called him the invincible god of war. However, they had no proper understanding of his strength. After all, to them, both Zuden realm and peak core formation realm cultivators were like gods to them, distant and unattainable. Then, someone leaked what had happened between Yizan and the old king, and what had happened when the grand elder of the Qian Gate went to the Qingyan sect. Then, all kinds of exaggerated versions of these stories emerged everywhere. At the beginning, the rumor only stated that Li Yan and the old king were afraid of Yizan's strength and did not dare to pursue the matter of Yizan destroying the Xuanian sect. However, by the time it reached the ears of the cultivators on the street, the story had already undergone huge changes. People were now saying that with a slight wave of Yizan's hand, he could destroy the Great Qian royal palace, and that even Li Yan and the old king had to kneel before his awesome might. Not only that, the titles of the strongest genius in the past 1,000 years of the Qingyan sect and the greatest genius of the current generation of the Great Qian dynasty changed as well. He was now called the strongest genius in the Nanzhou region for all eternity. Although these claims were somewhat ridiculous, the core formation realm cultivators of the Great Qian dynasty knew very well that Yizan's level of talent was monstrous, and that he would definitely be counted among the top genius cultivators of the Nanzhou region. Yizan was still in secluded cultivation at the moment, so he was unaware of the stories circulating about him in the outside world, and how ridiculous each one was. Of course, if he knew about this, he would only smile and deny it. After all, with his current level of talent, he was not worthy of being called the strongest genius of the Nanzhou region for all eternity. However, in the future, once he had recruited a large number of disciples, those claims might no longer be considered outrageous. Chapter 117. Can you even call that secluded cultivation? Although Yizan's previous level of talent was extremely high, and he was quite famous in the cultivation world, it was still limited to those in the know. However, after the incident between the Qingyan sect and the Xuanian sect, Yizan's reputation spread throughout the entire Great Qian dynasty, from the grassroots to the inner court of the royal palace. Not only that, some nearby empires that were adjacent to the Great Qian dynasty also started hearing rumors of Yizan's achievements. There were also many cultivators who went to the ruins of the Xuanian sect to observe the sword chi marks Yizan left behind. It was said that this sword strike had instantly slain 5 core formation realm experts. To most cultivators, this was undoubtedly miraculous. When they stood in front of the trench, which was hundreds of meters deep, they could sense the tyrannical sword chi, and there were marks all over the ground that testified to the power of the sword strike. Most importantly, some of Yizan's sword intent lingered in the trench. Some talented cultivators, after observing his sword intent, had their cultivation levels increased. Some even comprehended the embryonic form of sword intent. From then on, Yizan became the idol of every cultivator in the Great Qian dynasty. This was especially true for sword cultivators, to whom Yizan was like a god. Zhongqing City. The city had been extremely lively these past few days, and the Li family's residence was packed with people. There were lanterns and streamers everywhere in the family, as if something big had happened. Outsiders might not know, but the cultivators of Zhongqing City knew very well that the reason why the Li family was so lively was because they had heard about Yizan's achievements, and organized a celebration in his honor. The Li family decided to hold a banquet to celebrate for 3 days and 3 nights. As long as anyone in Zhongqing City came to the Li family's residence, they could participate in the banquet for free. When Yizan visited Zhongqing City back then, he had left a deep impression on everyone. Still, no one here expected that, in less than a month, he would cause a sensation that resounded throughout the entire Great Qian dynasty. Yizan had reached the peak of the core formation realm at the age of 20 and had single-handedly destroyed the Xuanian sect. Although no one had a good impression of the Xuanian sect, their strength was unquestionable. In the eyes of countless people, the Xuanian sect was absolutely untouchable. Any one of their core formation realm elders could easily destroy Zhongqing City. However, such a terrifying sect was easily destroyed by Yizan. In addition to that, according to the rumors, Yizan had not even used his full strength to destroy them. As for whether those rumors were true, no one knew. After all, there were all sorts of ridiculous exaggerations out there. What they could confirm was that Yizan had already become an invincible existence in the Great Qian dynasty. What did Yizan's achievements have to do with a small family in Zhongqing City? Why were they so happy? The reason was very simple. The daughter of the head of the Li family was Yizan's personal disciple. At this point in time, countless cultivators were filled with envy and jealousy toward the Li family. In less than 2 days, countless people had showed up at their doors. Long-lost relatives who had not been seen for hundreds of years suddenly returned to acknowledge their ancestors. Now, even the servants of the Li family were respected by the city's populace. Compared to the celebrations at the Li family's residence, the atmosphere at the Huoli and Shenshin sects was one of depression. Many cultivators saw their sect leaders' worried expressions as they sighed daily at the missed opportunity. Back then, they had distanced themselves from the Qingyan sect to save their own skin. Who knew that Yizan had become so powerful? However, there was no medicine for regret. The guy had reached the peak of the core formation realm at the age of 20. The word, monstrous, was no longer sufficient to describe his talent. If the Yizan from before had been described as a hidden dragon, he was now a full-fledged majestic dragon, soaring through the 9 heavens. Everyone knew that Yizan would leave the Great Qian dynasty sooner or later. The Nanzhou region, or even the entire Tianyuan continent, was Yizan's true stage. Although the Nanzhou region was vast and endless, it was only one of the regions of the Tianyuan continent. How vast was the Tianyuan continent? Even core formation realm experts only had a vague understanding of the Tianyuan continent from the records. Yizan's future achievements would definitely be unimaginable. Everyone was certain that, not long from now, Yizan would definitely become the first Unity Realm expert in the past hundreds of years in the Great Qian dynasty. Yizan remained in secluded cultivation as the days went by. Soon, 8 days had passed. During this time, Yizan successfully refined another portion of the medicinal efficacy of the 7th grade Nirvana pill. Even so, he still could not break through. As expected, the higher the realm, the harder it is to break through. Despite his current innate bone value, coupled with the medicinal efficacy of the 7th grade Nirvana pill, there were no signs of breaking through. From this, one could see how difficult it was to reach the Unity realm. However, if other peak core formation realm experts heard Yizan's words, they would definitely be furious. Did he not just cultivate for 8 days? How could that be called secluded cultivation? Trying to break through in just 8 days. Was this guy dreaming? Others would be in secluded cultivation for months, if not years, and still might not be able to break through. Yet Yizan was dreaming of the impossible. It seems that I can only truly break through after fully refining the medicinal efficacy of the 7th grade Nirvana pill. This will take at least 5 days. Although he had not truly stepped into the first level of the Unity realm, he was still considered a half-step Unity realm cultivator. After a few days of assiduous cultivation, his body had already fused with part of the divine element, and now contained overflowing vitality. Even if there were wounds that were deep enough to see bone, they would heal within an extremely short period of time. Chapter 118. Absolute Devotion. Even if Yi Zan stood still, no matter how casually Ah Yu and Li Qingyan attacked, he could not break through the defense of his body. I'll make another breakthrough in the future. Judging from the time, the mystic realm of the moon demon should have opened. Then, Yi Zan left the cultivation room and flew over the sect leader's residence. There, Wan Shanhai informed him that the moon demon mystic realm had actually already appeared, though its entrance had yet to open. The moon demon mystic realm's entrance varied with each opening, and the location of each entrance was random. The only thing they knew was that one entrance to the moon demon mystic realm would appear in the Great Qian dynasty. Furthermore, according to rumors, the moon demon mystic realm's entrances were not only spread across the Nanzhou region, but even appeared in other places throughout the Tian Yuan continent. 5 days ago, the entrances from the Great Qian dynasty's side had been located, and the one closest to the Qingyan sect was located in Zhongping province. At this moment, whether it was cultivators training in the outside world or in secluded cultivation, they all stopped what they were doing and went to the entrance of the moon demon mystic realm, hoping to obtain a great harvest. Yi Zan called Yu and Li Qingyan over. Qingyan, I haven't given you a mount yet. As soon as he finished speaking, the bird-shaped mark on Yi Zan's forehead suddenly lit up, and then a huge bird emitting a powerful aura suddenly appeared. Blazing Plume, a Tier 5 demon beast. Its cultivation was comparable to that of a human Zuden realm cultivator. Yi Zan had been so focused on improving his own cultivation that he almost forgot to give his mount to Li Qingyan. Also, it had been a month since Yu had gotten the firebird, so he could give one to her as well. What a beautiful bird. Seeing this, Li Qingyan's eyes lit up, and her face was full of surprise and joy. The blazing plume hovered in the air. Its fiery red feathers fluttered in the wind as it flapped its wings, and its eyes were filled with bright light. Moments later, Yi Zan reached out and gently tapped Li Qingyan's forehead. Then, he helped her form a contract with the blazing plume. Li Qingyan suddenly felt an inexplicable connection with the blazing plume, and she felt a lot closer to it. Thank you, teacher, Li Qingyan said sweetly. In the future, even if her teacher could not accompany her, she could still ride the blazing plume as her mode of transportation. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a low-grade blazing plume, Tier 5 demon beast, the host has received a randomized 46x critical reward. Congratulations, the host has obtained a mid-grade firewing Tier 5 demon beast. At the same time, in the system's storage space, a Tier 5 demon beast, whose strength was comparable to a human true core realm cultivator, suddenly appeared. The firewing's body was covered in surging flames. Other than its eyes, which were golden, the rest of its body was a fiery red color. You, the firebird is a little low level after all. I'll give you another higher level mount. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zan reached out to break the contract between you and the firebird. Screech. The firebird roared into the sky and suddenly appeared in front of Yu. Its large head rubbed gently against Yu's cheek. Then it came over and rubbed its head against Yi Zan with a face full of reluctance. If you want to, then you can stay at my Lingzhu peak to oversee things, Yi Zan said while looking at the firebird. After all, the firebird was once his mount. Although it did not match his current strength, Yi Zan was not a heartless person. Screech. The firebird let out a long howl at the sky as if it was happy to hear Yi Zan's answer. Then, it flapped its wings and flew in the air. It circled around Lingzhu peak before slowly landing. As a cultivator could only have one demon beast mount at any given time, so if Yi Zan wanted to give you a higher level mount, he had to break the contract between her and the firebird. Ding. As the host has given his disciple a mid-grade firewing Tier 5 demon beast, the host has received a randomized 40x critical reward. Congratulations. The host has obtained a high-grade flaming pinion Tier 5 demon beast. As the system's notification rang out, Yi Zan's mount changed again. It was replaced with a high-grade Tier 5 flaming pinion, which was as strong as a human golden core realm cultivator. The feathers of the flaming pinion glowed green and blue. When its wings flapped, it emitted green flames. Although the flaming pinion was not of much help to Yi Zan, he could give it to Li Qingyan or Yu in the future, and it would also help to ensure his disciple's safety. Although he had already given the two girls jade tokens, the terrifying power contained in the jade tokens was a precious trump card. Moreover, it was a consumable item, so they could not afford to use it as they pleased. As for the blazing plume and the firewing, they were equivalent to Zuden realm and true core realm cultivators respectively. As long as they did not encounter a particularly powerful enemy, they would be able to deal with most enemies. This would be helpful in the moon demon mystic realm, where they would be separated upon entrance randomly to different parts of the mystic realm. If the two girls were in danger, even Yizan might not be able to reach them in time. However, now that they had powerful mounts and his jade tokens, he felt much more at ease. Alright, it's time for us to head to Zhongping province. Just now, Yu and Li Qingyan's gazes had been fixed on Yizan. Their hearts were filled with curiosity toward their teacher. Why did it feel like their teacher's resources were inexhaustible? Such high-level demon beasts and pills were given to them randomly. When they compared him with the other disciples' teachers, they found that at most, those disciples would be given ordinary mounts that had barely reached the Qi transformation realm. Although they were his disciples, they realized that their teacher remained a mystery to them. He was young and extremely powerful, and did not seem to lack cultivation resources. In addition, he cared for them very much. Could there really be such a perfect person in this world? It could be said that they were not only grateful to Yizan, but also absolutely worshipped him. Chapter 119, Chaos. Is there something on my face? Why are you guys staring at me? Yizan noticed the two girls' gazes and asked curiously. No, nothing. I just. Hearing this, Yu and Li Qingyan could not help but stare blankly at the floor. Their faces turned as they lowered their heads, their hands clutching the corners of their clothes. They were nervous that their teacher had discovered that they had been sneaking glances at him. Later, 3 teams moved out from the Qingyan sect together. Yizan with Yu and Li Qingyan, Lin Qing with Huangling and Shui Min, and Wan Shanhai with Chen Zhaofang. The 3 teams headed to Zhongping province. The Moon Demon mystic realm contained countless heavenly treasures, and was thus extremely tempting to cultivators. Many lucky cultivators had obtained great opportunities in the mystic realms. Some even broke through major realms and became major figures in the Great Qian dynasty. Therefore, even if those cultivators knew that their cultivation levels were low, they would not hesitate to try their luck inside the Moon Demon mystic realm. After all, cultivation was the path of challenging fate in the heavens. If they wanted to obtain opportunities, they had to bear the risks of doing so. The path of cultivation was littered with the bones of those who had failed. Zhongping province was a remote province in the southwest territory of the Great Qian dynasty. However, even if one called it remote, there were tens of millions of cultivators in Zhongping province. With the news of the Moon Demon mystic realm entrance appearing there, countless cultivators swarmed over. Apart from the cultivators from the Great Qian dynasty, there were also cultivators from other nearby empires. With such a large number of cultivators gathered in the same place, conflicts were unavoidable. Over the past few days, hundreds of fights had broken out in Zhongping province. Some cultivators who already had grudges with each other immediately drew their swords and fought when they saw each other. Even Purple Spirit Realm experts were fighting each other. Due to the Purple Spirit Realm cultivators' terrifying strength, the powerful energy fluctuations and shockwaves from their battles had destroyed many cities and killed many ordinary people. Yang City was a city in Zhongping province that was close to the Moon Demon mystic realm, though not the closest. The city had turned away countless cultivators, but in the end, even the city lord's manor was unable to stem the tide of cultivators. Still, they issued a warning to these cultivators to restrain their actions, hoping to rely on the authority of the Great Qian dynasty to keep them in line. Furthermore, in order to prevent more of the city's civilians from being affected, the city lord's manor constructed a battle arena for those cultivators with grudges to fight without affecting the rest of the city. Still, not every cultivator followed the rules. Boom. Powerful energy waves swept out, and a trench that was several meters deep suddenly appeared on the street. The surrounding houses instantly collapsed. Some weak Qi transformation realm and true essence realm cultivators were affected by the energy waves and died on the spot. When the others saw this, they immediately panicked and frantically ran in all directions. This was a battle between 2 7th-level Purple Spirit Realm cultivators. Hurry up and run. They are from the Great Chuan Empire, the leader of the Tsar sect, Lin Beimo, and the Black God sect's chief, Huang Hongchang. It's said that these two forces are mortal enemies. Now that they've stumbled into each other, there's bound to be blood spilled. Damn, 2 7th-level Purple Spirit Realm experts. Even the array formation in the arena can't withstand their attacks. If we don't escape quickly, we'll die. Hurry up and run. Everyone's faces turned pale as they ran in all directions. The strength of these two cultivators did not differ much. In addition, they had every intention of fighting to the death, and would therefore use their full strength every time they attacked. The originally crowded street had suddenly become empty, other than Lin Beimo and Huang Hongchang. The two of them unleashed powerful martial techniques as they fought like dogs. Violent energy shockwaves spread from the point of impact, and turned the surrounding buildings into dust. The city lord also sensed this powerful energy undulation and instantly left the city lord's manor. A voice filled with powerful energy suddenly rang out within the city. Both of you. This is the Great Qian Dynasty's Yang City. If you want to fight, please leave the city. Otherwise, be prepared to face the consequences. Scram. The one who answered the city lord was Lin Beimo. Resplendent saber chi that was dozens of meters long slashed toward the city lord in the distance. Seeing this, the city lord's expression turned ugly. He dodged sideways to avoid the attack. These two people did not take him seriously at all. However, there was nothing he could do. After all, he was only a 6th level purple spirit realm cultivator. There was no way he could interfere in their fight. Moreover, these two came from the Great Chuan Empire and were not bothered about the threat of the Great Qian royal family. Boom! Lin Beimo and Huang Hongcheng once again unleashed their terrifying auras and continued to fight. Sword chi and saber chi clashed unceasingly, creating even more energy shockwaves. Under normal circumstances, a small place like Yang City might not even be visited by a single purple spirit realm expert all year round. Unfortunately, their proximity to the entrance of the Moon Demon Mystic Realm changed things this time. Sigh. At this moment, in an inn about 500 meters away from the two fighting cultivators, a middle-aged man who had been resting with his eyes closed slowly opened his eyes and sighed helplessly. He did not want to make a move, but the battle between the two was about to affect the place he was staying. If any cultivator from Zhongqing City was here, they would definitely be able to recognize this middle-aged man. He was the leader of the Mad Saber sect, a top-notch expert at the early stage of the Zuden stage. Ever since the incident with Yi Zan, he had abandoned his arrogant style of doing things. Unless necessary, he would never reveal his own strength. Chapter 120. That man. The battle between the two cultivators from the Great Chuan Empire was gradually approaching him. If he did not make a move, the inn where he was would be razed to the ground. Although the strength of a purple spirit realm cultivator could not be compared to that of a core formation realm cultivator, if they were allowed to continue their rampage, all of Yang City would probably be reduced to ruins. However, just as the leader of the Mad Saber sect was about to teach the two of them a lesson, an indifferent voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire Yang City. Every cultivator could hear this voice. No matter where you come from, you are not allowed to fight and kill in Yang City from today onward. Those who disobey this order will be killed without mercy. When everyone heard this, they trembled. Even Lin Beimo and Huang Hongcheng hurriedly stopped fighting, their eyes flickering with uncertainty. Who was the most shocked person in Yang City? It was the leader of the Mad Saber sect. This voice was extremely familiar, and was probably his greatest nightmare. It was Yi Zan's voice. Bang! In his excitement, he accidentally lost control of his strength, instantly turning the tables and chairs in front of him into dust. Yi Zan. It was actually Yi Zan. Why was he here? Was this not too much of a coincidence? Zhongping province had dozens of counties, so why did he have to come to Yang City? The world knew of how terrifying Yi Zan was by news and hearsay, but he had personally experienced Yi Zan's strength. When he stood before him back then in Zhongqing City, he could not even fathom the thought of resisting. Moreover, when he learned that Yi Zan had single-handedly destroyed the Xuanian sect, he was extremely shocked. In his opinion, although Yi Zan's strength was terrifying and was something he could never hope to attain, he did not have the power to go up against a top-ranked sect by himself. Therefore, the leader of the Mad Saber sect had secretly investigated Yi Zan. After learning the details of that incident, he was even more shocked. Some accurate information, he was even more shocked. It turned out that Yi Zan had already shown mercy to him back then, or else he would have died a long time ago. At the same time, the leader of the Mad Saber sect was secretly glad that he had made a clear choice at that time. A 20-year-old peak core formation realm expert. With Yi Zan's monstrous talent, he would definitely go beyond the Great Qian dynasty in the future. The Tian Yuan continent was vast, but that was all he knew. After all, he had never stepped out of the territory of the Nanzhou region, which was only one of the regions of the Tian Yuan continent. He had read some of the text from the ancient records that stated that there were terrifying existences in the Tian Yuan continent who were capable of destroying the world itself. It was said that those experts had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. They were basically immortal and could easily destroy an empire. However, these were all just stories from the records, which now existed in the imagination of the leader of the Mad Saber sect. However, when he saw Yi Zan, these legends and myths did not seem so far-fetched anymore. As for whether Yi Zan could grow to become as heaven-defying as those people recorded in the ancient records, he was not certain. However, he was certain that Yi Zan would not be limited to the Great Qian dynasty, or even the Nanzhou region. Therefore, when he heard Yi Zan's voice again, his heart palpitated with terror. Who are you? After the voice finished speaking, Huang Hongcheng frowned, and a hint of coldness flashed across his eyes. HMPH. How dare you meddle in the affairs between me and the Black God sect? Hearing this, Lin Beimo also sneered. Although the voice contained considerable power, they could also project their voices like that. Yi Zan had not bothered to release his spiritual pressure, so they were unaware of his strength. Extremely stupid. Seeing this, the leader of the Mad Saber sect felt pity for them. Were these two people's brains kicked by a donkey? How could a person who dared to speak like this be weak? Even he himself could easily destroy the two, let alone Yi Zan. However, Yi Zan did not respond to Lin Beimo and Huang Hongcheng's angry roars. He had already given them a warning. As for what they chose, it was none of his business. If they were obedient, then so be it. If they were not, he did not mind killing them. Moreover, Yi Zan was also staying at an inn dozens of meters away. Originally, he was not bothered about such things, but their fight was about to reach the inn. Most importantly, Yu and Li Qingyan were busy cultivating and comprehending sword techniques, so he would not allow them to be distracted by these two cultivators. As disciples, Yu and Li Qingyan knew that the best way they could repay their teacher's kindness was by cultivating assiduously. Therefore, as soon as Yi Zan and the others arrived at the inn, they took the initiative to cultivate. However, if the energy shockwaves reached the inn, it would interrupt Yu and Li Qingyan's cultivation. Hee. Coward. After seeing that no one responded, Lin Beimo and Huang Hongcheng smiled coldly. They had initially thought that the owner of the voice was a powerful expert, but then the other party had not responded to them. They laughed coldly and thought that Yi Zan was afraid of their strength. Boom. Moments later, the two once again turned on each other. Their spiritual power swept out as they resumed fighting again. Spiritual power swept out as they resumed fighting again. Spiritual